Tennessee.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all out to our Planning Commission meeting tonight. Our opening remarks and pledge will be from Jason Watterson. I'll turn the time over to him for a minute.
I'll do my opening remarks in the form of a prayer.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this day. We're grateful for this beautiful land that we live in. We're grateful for the freedoms that we have in this country and for those that we associate with. We're grateful for the opportunity to participate in this process tonight, to look at the best uses for this community that we live in, and we ask you to guide us in the things that we do, that we might reflect well upon this community and bring it together. We're grateful for those who have served in the military and protect us each and every day. And these blessings we ask for in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. You would join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jason. On our agenda tonight, we have 3 consent items, and then we have 4 regular action items. The one item on the agenda, we're talking.
Yeah, I would just like to make an adjustment. Item number 1, the Mountain View subdivision, I'd like to take that off the consent agenda and put it on the regular action item. Just a little discussion on the staff recommendation, since there's kind of 2 paths to take on that. But other than that, there's no other changes.
Okay. Anybody see any other changes that need to be made to the agenda or additions? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we accept the agendas, whatever,
Okay, I'll take us.
with one change. With that change.
With that
so,
one
yeah,
change?
we move that consent item to a regular action item.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to our approval of the minutes. Going over our last, we were kind of scarce at our last meeting. Did everyone here have a chance to read over the agenda items, or the minutes?
Yeah, they look good to me.
Okay. Who else was here, Britt?
Yeah, those are good.
Okay. I'd accept a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting.
Motion is,
I'll second that.
we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So our first item on the consent items is the Lavender Farms. After going over the items, has everybody had a chance to review that? You need to discuss anything? Angie, did you have anything that,
Nothing on this, no.
okay? If we don't have anything, we'll move to the third item, Clint and Leslie Ward, Homestead Subdivision 1 Amendment. Anybody, anything on that one? Okay. I'd take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the 2 consent agenda items.
Okay, motion.
Second it.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On our regular action items, we'll now go over the Mountain View subdivision. Angie, you got a report on that? Some changes you want to go over on that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the one kind of concern with this subdivision. So as you can see with staff determination, we have a denial if it proceeds as is, or a recommendation of approval with conditions if the plat is amended. Here's the aerial of the property. What they're looking at is they have 6.7 acres that you may recall was recently rezoned to the RU2. As part of their plat, the subdivision boundary kind of ends about here. So there's a remainder parcel, but it's not an agricultural remainder. It's outside the subdivision boundary. The director has determined, based on a review of the code, that we cannot create a restricted parcel through a subdivision process. So either the subdivision plat needs to be amended to include that remainder parcel in the boundary, or it needs to be denied as is. But in order to move forward, to make that, sorry, let me back up a little. The intention for that remainder parcel was that the neighbor to the north wanted to purchase it and include it in their property. But in order to do that, they would have to go through a subdivision amendment as well. And then there is the issue with that portion of the property being a different zone than the property to the north. So there's just a couple of kinks. But if they want to go forward with the subdivision plat, as they submitted it with the remainder parcel, then staff would recommend denial. If they're willing to amend the parcel so that it includes this remainder, and I have the plat right here, then you can go ahead and approve it with the conditions that are in place. So applicant, I hope, is here to discuss that. I haven't noticed if he came in. Oh, he is. Mr. Kremble?
Would you like to come up and address that for us?
Sure.
Would you state your name?
Okay. Yeah, Steve Crambuel.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I'm kind of new to this. So when I talked to the surveyor, I just said, hey, the intent is that that neighbor to the north, McKellar, wanted to buy that property, which left us with still 6 acres, which was still giving us 2 acres per lot. And when I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, that's probably not a problem. And so I knew, and he said that there was going to be conditions to whatever plat we submitted. And so just to submit it, I have no problem, taking that off. That was just, what was kind of recommended to me, so.
Okay.
So by taking it off,
I'm sorry, including that parcel back onto and keeping it at 6.69 acres, whatever it was, like removing, or changing the plat to however you guys would like to see that, so.
part of that parcel
Yeah,
then?
yeah, we could keep it all together. Like I said, it was just, when I talked to the surveyor, he just said, hey, well, they're gonna have conditions. If he wants to buy that, then we could just do it like this, and then if they have a problem with it, we can kind of deal with it at this meeting, so.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions for him while he's up here?
Hey, just looking at this, on the surrounding uses, it doesn't matter, but I noticed on the surrounding uses, they have West Residential Richmond City. That should be Mendon.
I have another correction to make on it. Well, I guess we did it on consent, but yes, I have some. Oh, no, actually, just this one, sorry. Yeah, there's, part of the text that I mentioned, that Richmond is on the other side, or Mendon's on the other side of the railroad, but I apologize.
Okay. So in order to do this, are we able to approve it with the amendment, with the changes that he's wanting to do, mention tonight?
Yeah, you're able to approve it with the conditions if the plat is amended to include that in the.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to talk to, I don't know if the surveyor said he was gonna call you too, and just talk about doing that change, so it wasn't, because there's several changes, I think, to the plat, like for right-of-way, and then I need to get some engineering done and stuff like that. So I talked to him about all of those things, and he said, I was hoping to actually have an amended plat already, like at least with that portion of it, but I don't have it yet. But so, anyway.
Alternatively, I guess you could continue it, and they could prepare an amendment for the subdivision to the north to be processed at the same time that this one is processed, so that remainder parcel goes into the Mendon Shadow subdivision to the north. They would both have to be processed at the same time and recorded at the same time in order for that to happen.
For staff, I got one other question too. If, well, I guess I just was wondering on prior to recording the plat on item 5, the future 80-foot right-of-way on 5400 West must be shown on the plat. Is that taken into consideration in the acreage currently or after?
No, because that's not a required dedication. It exceeds the amount that we're.
Just the right-of-way, okay.
Required to dedicate, so it's just showing that this is gonna be I think it's a collector road, minor collector. So that in the future, that will be a larger road, as needed, but they just want future property owners to be aware that
Okay,
they might be in the right of way or very close to it, depending on their setbacks.
sounds good.
And then as far as this remainder parcel too, like I'm totally for letting him buy that. I mean, when I first brought the subdivision before everybody, I know that this Jeremiah Workman didn't really want anything behind him, and that was kind of, I was willing to, hey, let's just sell it then to your neighbor, and then I can't really do anything with it, and neither can he, you know. So anyway, but so if it's possible to do that all as part of one, that's great too. But we can just take care of that after if that's, you know, going to make it easier. So
Okay,
I don't know what would be easier.
all right,
So.
thanks, Steve.
Okay, cool.
So what do we want to do? Keep this clean.
They're ready to have it cleaned up, so I'm good with approving it with the change, with amending the plat.
Okay. Any other concern? So I take a motion to,
I'd make a motion then that we approve that Mountain View subdivision with the conditions and what many conditions? The conditions, and the one conclusion that they amend the plat.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we're into our public hearing part. The first item is the Thomas Ranch rezone. Before we open it up for public comment, staff, do you want to go over that a little bit?
Yes, yeah. So this is a request to rezone 831.76 acres from the forest recreation FR 40 zone to the agricultural A10 zone. This rezone may allow the parcel to be legally divided into a maximum of 83 separate lots as part of the subdivision process. However, as you'll note from the attachment B with the sensitive areas, the net developable acreage will reduce the maximum number of lots allowed, as there are a lot of steep slopes that are not. So the current FR 40 zone is more restrictive and does not allow permanent residences, but does allow seasonal cabins with a maximum occupancy of 180 days per year and can be divided into one lot for every 40 acres. So staff has identified some general information in the staff report to assist the Planning Commission and County Council in arriving at a decision. The information is, as noted, is reflected in the report and the attachments A and B. Small portions of the noted parcels are suitable for or have been used for agriculture uses. However, the majority of these parcels are comprised of mountainous terrain, steep and moderate slopes, and high mountain meadows. Previous rezone requests from FR 40 to A10, which include, you may recall the one at Paradise Drive Canyon, that have been approved were supported by historical agricultural use. Additional land use context for the subject parcels. When we look at rezones, we tend to look at what's immediately surrounding the subject properties, what's at a quarter acre buffer, and then what's at a half acre buffer, to give us some context. Within the full half mile buffer from the subject properties, there are no parcels with homes. Within the unincorporated county area, there are a total of 28 parcels and an average size of 109 acres. Again, none of those have homes on them. Fox Elder County does border this area to the south and west, but as they are not within our jurisdiction, we do not review or look at what was out there in the Fox Elder County area. Again, the subject property contains sensitive areas that would impact future development. As mentioned, a significant portion of the properties have areas of steep and moderate slopes, which cannot be developed or used in future density calculations for the subdivision. A very, very rough estimate, me just using the area measurement tool on our GIS map, shows that there's approximately 380 acres, or about 45% of the properties that are covered in steep slopes. Actually bring that up maps.
What percentage was that?
About 45.
45.
Again, I stress this is a very rough estimate. But again, as you can see from those GIS parcel summary reports that are attached to the staff report, all of that red is all steep slopes, which is more than 30%. The area, and then if we put on our layers for geographic information, again, the red throughout all of these parcels, and those are all indicative of steep slopes. And again, another point for context for these parcels, they're adjacent to other properties that are either in Box Elder County, as mentioned, or zoned FR 40 forest recreation. The current land use ordinance does not specify appropriate locations for the agricultural A10 zone. But here the nearest A10 zone is approximately 3¼ miles east of the subject property on Mount Pisgah Road in the Mount Sterling area, so on the other side. So the land use ordinance does identify the purpose of the agricultural zone to provide areas to promote and protect the opportunities for a broad range of agricultural uses and activities where farming is a viable component of the local economy, and to implement the policies of the Cache County-wide comprehensive plan, including those regarding agricultural promotion, prime farmlands, density-based residential standards, and clustering. As far as access and services to this property, there is no access from a county road. Primary access to the properties is from Highway 8991, and then a private road, the Thomas Ranch Road that you can see here. Logan City Environmental does not provide refuse collection in this area. And Fire didn't have any comments on the rezone, but any future access must be reevaluated and may require improvements based on the location of proposed structures. Typically for seasonal cabins, Fire is not as concerned since it's not a primary residence about gaining access to that. As far as public notice and comments, we did post it online, sent it to property owners with 300 feet. At this time, I've had a couple of phone calls, but no written public comments regarding the proposals. Staff has typically in the past not made a recommendation on rezone requests, but here we have recommended a denial due to the location of the subject property is not compatible with the purpose of the agricultural A10 zone, and it's more appropriate and consistent with the purposes of the FR 40 zone due to limited access, presence of sensitive areas not compatible with development, lack of essential services, and will conflict or have deleterious effects upon surrounding properties. So that concludes staff's report.
Thanks, Angie.
Angie, is any of that 800 and something acres is part of that in Box Elder County? Or is that all the acreage that's in
Yeah,
Cache
he owns
County?
some property in Box Elder, but obviously we just have jurisdiction for what's in Cache County.
So they could be going to Box Elder County with the same, similar proposal?
Correct, and I think they may, they have some other land just south of here, I believe Midway, that area. Yes, they could.
Just going back on the fire, the closest fire department for that would be Wellsville, most likely.
Most likely, yeah, unless you go over to Box Elder County, but that would be Brigham City's. Yeah, Wellsville's still probably close.
Okay.
One of the questions that I had on it was, you know, that's 840 acres. The majority, I don't know, the majority of it isn't, well, like we talked, 45% isn't, you know, wouldn't even fit the ag criteria. for the A10, so how do you,
Well, I guess when you hear from the applicant, that it looks to me like, we're just trying to get it rezoned so we can start selling off a bunch of lots. And, is that appropriate for that area with all the constraints we have on roads and everything else, so. Because they're not gonna farm that ground.
Applicant has stated that he just wants it for his home, but yeah, doing a rezone does allow it for, open it up to development.
And for not just, cabin lots, it's, start doing all kinds of things up there, so.
any other
Well, the
comments?
other thing that's, as you read in the ordinance, as you take it to A10, it's to provide, promote, and protect opportunities for a broad range of agricultural uses. All of those, I don't see any of that being applied here, so.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I guess I want to hear from the applicant, because
Yeah.
right now I go along with the
so
suggested denial, so.
we could open it up, open the public hearing. I'd take a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we open the public hearing for the Thomas Ranch rezone.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is the agent here, Lon Thomas? Okay, would you like to come up?
First of all, I have no intentions of selling any lots. What my intentions are, I grew up on a farm, and my dad grew up on a farm, and my granddad grew up on a farm, and my great-granddad before him homesteaded the farm that they all grew up on. Long time, way out in the middle of nowhere. With that farm out there at Medicine Lodge had like 30 miles of dirt road to get in. Farm I grew up on had 4 miles of dirt road to get in out to it. And the neighbors that were around all had a house on there, and we all lived on the places that we worked. I bought this beautiful ranch, which is a farm also. It's got about 150 acres of cultivated alfalfa on it, and the rest of it is we're raising cattle on for rangeland pasture. But to run a ranch and farm properly, in my opinion, you need to live on it. The only way I can live on it if I can change the zoning. The only zoning that I can do that lets me live on it is put it to A10. So that's why I wanted to put it to A10, so I can go live on it. I didn't buy the big ranch for other people to come live on it. I bought it so I can live on it. I don't want other people out there. I don't want them there. That's why I bought a big spot. So, anyway, I grew up a farmer and I had a ranch my whole life. I want to live on my own ranch. So, I know my son can talk better than I can. I can't say too good. Maybe you can get him up here.
Okay.
Unless you got a
We've
question
got Lon
for
up
me.
there. Do we have any questions for Lon?
May have a few more after the rest of the people,
Okay.
if they so desire to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, this is public hearing, so we can have,
Yeah,
whoever's here to speak to this, whether it's pro or con, why.
Thank you.
Dan Thomas, Lon's son. Probably some of the things that would help talking about houses near. We do have property on the Box Elder side. It is actually in A20 currently, so it is fairly similar. There's no A20 in Cache Valley, and so this was the closest that we could be able to do. Again, no intention there of selling anything, but I do personally want to go, and I actually work with my parents and I like them, and I'd like to live near them. So I'd like to be able to build a house near my parents. Right now you can't do that. And I think there's a lot of people in the area that just say, well, go along with just call it a summer cabin thing and live there as long as you want. And we're trying to do the right thing by coming in and changing the zoning and saying what our intention is right up front. And if you include what's in Box Elder, which I know that you couldn't include in your review, but right across the street, there's guys that live right there in their houses. We have one other property right next to us south, and then you're right into Manaway, right into the rest of the housing right there. So I feel like putting a house there is not too far different from the intended use. And while there are a number of steep areas, we bought it to ranch it and to farm on it, and I feel that making the change so that we can continue to use it for the agricultural use that it's intended for is, you know, within the purview of that A10, which allows us to have a home-based business and to use it for agricultural, you know, farming use. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
Can I ask a question just on that? So we're bringing multiple parcels in, there are multiple parcels that we're proposing changing the zone on. I guess my question would be, if we just want to build a house, why aren't we looking at one parcel and
Change that to an A10 and not
and
the
change
whole.
one parcel where you're going to place the home? What this, I mean, just on the surface, we get what we get in the packet. It feels like, wow, this is a massive development because we're looking at 800 plus acres.
Yeah.
And all of that. Why not say I'm going to build a home here on this one parcel, and that's what we're seeing?
Okay, for sure. And probably, first of all, sorry for that. We're new and just trying to do it right. But probably my biggest response to that is this is actually our second time trying to have a ranch. So we used to have a ranch up in Park City and, you know, didn't worry about the zoning, got in, said, hey, we'll get the zoning worked out and figured out we can build a house in there. We had it for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. We had one other partner. They got a house. Wouldn't let anybody else put a house in. And so we fought and argued and tried and never could get in, finally just sold out and gave up. So coming into this one, right at the very front, we're trying to adjust, you know, the zoning and address it such that where we want, you know, honestly, like we just barely bought the property just a few months ago. I don't know where I want my house. I haven't ever been out there in the summer. I don't know the best spot or the worst spot or whatnot. And so we just figured it's like, well, if I'm going to change it, let me just give me all the opportunity that I need. And then when I know it's like, it's within the zone and I don't have to come back and say, you know what, hey, we decided that the parcel that we thought we were going to build on, it turns out my wife hates it and we want to build on this other one. And now we got to go through the whole change process again. So that being said, though, if that's a sticking point, we're more than happy to adjust and to be responsive to it. You know, we're just trying to provide a way that we can be able to go and have a family ranch.
Question. So did you read through, did you see how when we changed A10, the forest, the FR40 needs to have shown that it was used in agricultural, and then going to an A10, it needs to document it is agriculture. You said it's got about 150 acres that it's been in agricultural. So I'm coming back to what Commissioner Parker and Watterson have said. Shrink that because we just can't carte blanche throw an A10 on something that's forest and is forest, even if, I mean, how many cows are going through there, I don't know, but maybe if you read that, you'd see an understanding of what we're seeing, that you just can't throw an A10 on all of it because of meeting those two factors of what it was and what it's going to come.
Okay. Is it going to cause any problems if we have some, you know, screwy shaped parcels in there that just says, okay, well, this is a 10-acre parcel and this is another little teeny one over here in the middle of AR40? I mean, if it doesn't cause problems for you, I guess I'm all right with it. It just...
Well, that's what I was going to say, what my vision when we drove, you know, for months now, we've been driving by and seeing the road developed up there and thinking, oh, what's going to go in there? It's just going to look like the south end of Bear Lake 2 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you come with an A10 and you think, oh, yeah, that's what they have in mind. So you're stating something different, but you just purchased the property. If 3 years down the road you decide, we're going to change up, we're going to sell the whole deal, suddenly now it's 10-acre parcels. And it's worth way more money because now we can develop this thing into multiple lots. Mm-hmm. And so then that impacts roads, that impacts everything else. So as a planning commission, that's where we come from, is saying, what's the long term going to look like here? And are we approving something that we're going to wish we hadn't seen a couple years ago?
Yeah, understandable.
So
yeah.
that's why, you know, you said you're new to this, why, yeah, if we picked a smaller lot and says, okay, we want this to go with an A10 and it's got some farm ground part of it, that fits the mold. So that's, you know, my statement, my personal feelings.
I think we're right on. I mean, but still with other challenges. I mean,
yes.
Given the location, you know, it's distance from services and all of those things. I mean, there are definitely significant concerns with changing a zone in this area just because of the impact that it places on on county infrastructure, and so, that would be my question though, is this appears on the surface as a massive development, and that may be and that may be what you proposed, it may be what we got from staff, because that's the potential.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to look at as a planning commission, is what is the potential when we make a change such as this, and that's
Magnitude.
what's the magnitude, and
It's
that's really-
substantial, it's big. I mean, it's 840 acres. I
Yeah.
mean, the possibility, how many lots?
That's really why I ask questions of, you know, if we're just building a house or a couple of houses for the family to live there, maybe we need to relook at this and say, well, this is the parcel that we want to build this on. I don't know. Anyway, that's why I asked the questions.
Okay, and in response to that, we're just trying to make something happen that we could make happen this year. And so that's why we're kind of just saying, it's like, first thing we got to do is get the zoning so we can put the houses in and, you know, start. Because otherwise, what I don't want is to be sitting here in November saying, well, we'd like to do it next year, you know, and start my house next year. It's like, we'd really like to make it happen despite lumber costs this year. And for the record, we have been talking with, you know, on the Box Elder side and UDOT and fire department to make sure that the roads are going to be, you know, equivalent to what they need, and we have, you know, fair access off of 89 there.
Thank you.
I have to ask one other
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
Have you seen the property during the winter?
We used to snowmobile there.
I saw your crane kind of buried a little bit, but
Yeah, we grew up in Park City. I did at least, and so we're, I guess, familiar with the winter.
When you say you're on Box Elder County, do you own down to the Midway? What was the Midway?
Yeah,
And that's you doing the road there?
yeah,
getting
and
back to Harrow?
and cleaning it up. We got a bunch of that junk out of there.
Well, that's, yeah, when you see the road coming down into the old Midway Inn, it's, okay, so now they've made the loop. And being on the commission, I'm thinking, when am I gonna see this? So tonight we see it, and so that's why the Box Elder side, so you have another entrance, and then, of course, that impacts UDOT, and they're gonna have a lot to say about that, obviously. But, so again, as a planning commission, we make suggestions to the council, but we try to weed out the finer points at this point and before we pass it on to the council. But, so I appreciate your input, and maybe there's some others that have some input for it as well, so.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Open the public hearing.
What's that?
Need to open the roll. Or we open it. We did open it.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name's Seth Tate. I'm an attorney here in town, and it's always good to see John outside the context of a court battle. So good to see you, John. Listen, I'm here on behalf of Jepson Farm, LC, and particularly Larry Jepson, who owns the property north, just adjacent and north to the proposed zoning area.
Is that the Dry Lake area?
Yes, exactly. And so I think, although frankly, Mr. Parker, you and Mr. Watterson sort of stole my thunder here tonight, I think you guys hit all on the main points but it's helpful as a planning commission, you know, I think, to hear those views from the public as well, not just from yourself. And so I want to just maybe reiterate some of those finer points. First of all, you got a great staff report. I think it's very thorough. I think Angie did a great job on that. And we could talk all about those points, but I don't think I need to reiterate those because they've already, they're in there. But what I want to do, because I think you're all hitting all the major points that we're concerned about, that the Jepsons are concerned about, but since we're looking at this maybe more long-term, let me think a little more long-term, because although I certainly respect the Thompsons, they're coming here and telling us what their intentions are, but I think, as you correctly pointed out, property changes hands and intentions change, particularly after years go by. And so we have to consider this thing as a whole, and we have to look long-term. And I think that's what concerns me the most and what concerns the Jepsons the most. It's already been talked about what the purpose of the FR40 zone is. I think those purposes are well spelled out in your code, and I don't need to read that verbatim on the record, but I think they're even in the staff report. What I want to look at is more, this application gets at more a broader policy issue for zoning has an interesting temporal element to it. It has both an immediate element to it, what can and can't we do right now, but it also has sort of a future-looking element. What do we anticipate the uses will be in the future? What do neighboring property owners expect in the future, and how do they plan accordingly? And so it has this sort of prospective feel to it that I think you're all concerned about, and that's what we're concerned about as well. And as I look at that, I always look to the general plan, because that's where we try to put our broader policy. You know, the city council comes in and determines those broader policy considerations, puts them in the general plan. And I think it's important for this body to know, and hopefully the city council to know as well. The general plan addresses the FR40 zone really quite specifically. And on page 30 of, and I realize that this is being revamped right now, and I get that. And there's a great conversation going on about the updating the general plan. This is good, and this should be part of that discussion, frankly. But page 30 of the current general plan indicates that FR40 land should be restricted to recreational purposes. That's really, you know, the intent behind that zone, to preserve that mountain forest area, preserve it for rec purposes, public uses, and the like. On page 114 of the general plan, we get even a more definitive statement where it says that all current FR40 should remain FR40. And that's a statement of policy that's enshrined in our general plan. So when we look at zoning applications, we have to consider those policy considerations we've already made years ago. And that's part of our prospective, you know, look on this. We really like the county's vision, the 2021 vision that was adopted just a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. The idea that, you know, we keep city in the city and we keep country in the country. And this is really sort of the poster child for that. And so I agree with everything that the commission has mentioned already, and I just want to add the Jepson's concerns about this. Long term, this area is iconic. We all drive through on our way out of the valley. We know what it looks like. We know what it feels like. And the proposal as it's asserted right now does not maintain that. And I know, and you all know this, you've been doing this a long time, and these are legislative decisions. You obviously make recommendations, and with legislative decisions, there's broad discretions as opposed to administrative decisions, and we all understand that. But even legislative decisions are not carte blanche. They're not unfettered. And this sort of smacks as putting a little dot in a sea of FR40. We're going to put a little dot here, and we're going to rezone this island parcel in the nowhere. And you're all aware that Utah Supreme Court has really not liked that. This idea of spot zoning a particular parcel to accommodate, a specific landowner's desires. And when we do that, and we do that outside of a general plan, or what the Utah Supreme Court calls a unified plan, i.e. the municipal plan, we really start to raise the ire of a decision being arbitrary and capricious. And I'm not suggesting that's what we're doing here tonight, but there is some legality to this as well, unlike a lot of other legislative decisions. So those are the concerns from the Jepson's point of view. It sounds like there's opportunities for this property owner on the Box Elder County side of things. They're already looking to that. I don't know that we agree with the amount of acreage that's being farmed. I think there's significant concerns with this area is just peppered with. It's just riddled with sensitive areas, and I think that those are all concerns you've already brought up, so I won't waste your time rehashing those, but I want you to know that the Jepsons appreciate your concern for this. It does have the feel of a big development, and it really impacts these large prospective policy concerns. With that, Laurie Jepson did want to just share with you just a few personal comments as well on top of that. They've asked me to watch this carefully, as legal counsel, and I appreciate that, but it's really a public process, and she wanted to share her comments as well. So with that, I'll let her do that, unless you have any questions for me. All right.
Hi, I'm short. I got your letter, and it says on the one page, in a quote, I'm to have facts, and I'm not to show any emotion. I apologize. This farm's been in our family for 180 years. And I've had my heart broken twice this year. Once with my husband's death, and now with this farm thing. I'm very opposed to it. I think it should stay forest and not agricultural. There's no more beautiful place in the whole world than Dry Lake. And I'm sure all of you go through there and you see how beautiful it is. I've watched my in-laws and my husband for 57 and a half years farm Dry Lake. And he's loved it. And he's put his heart into it. Now it's going to be destroyed by planting houses and subdivisions. And I'm old and stupid, but I'm not dead yet. And I know that water doesn't run uphill. And the thing that I'm really concerned about is the fact that what's going to happen to our water when they start drilling wells for the 83 houses above us. Our spring's going to dry up. We'll be able to keep our cattle up there. We won't have any stock water if it dries up. My attorney told me that I'll have to get a, what do they call them? A water engineer, and see where the source of the water is, but it's been water engineered to death. When UDOT went through there and built the new highway through there, one of our main sources is a spring that comes out from underneath the highway. And my husband was on top of that. He didn't let anything get away from that. And he made sure that UDOT knew that that was there, and if it dried up, that there would be problems with it. So I know it's been checked out hundreds of times, but that's our biggest anxiety is the water and what's going to happen. Fire, you say that that's not really a problem. Well, let me tell you, my husband, right now, if he were alive, would say to my 2 grandsons and my son-in-law, okay, no more four-wheelers in the fields because we don't want a fire up here to destroy this beautiful place. And they never did. He told them to quit, and they quit. How are you going to get them there? Everybody talks like it's such an easy thing. Yeah, they'll come up from here, and they'll come up from here. But what happens when they can't get across that barrier that's across the highway? I had Wellsville City Fire Department tell me one time they went to an accident up there. It was on the other side of the highway. They pulled up, jumped over the barricade, and went to help the person. And the highway patrol came along and told them that they had to go back and get in their vehicles, drive to the state road shed, go around the barrier, and come back before they could help the person. Do you think he died before they got there? You know, that it all seems so cut and dried. Traffic. I was told by a very reliable source that there's 120 houses going in Sherwood Hills. And the 38 the 83 that's supposed to be going in Dry Lake, in my addition, that's over 200 cars on that road more a day, and it's already a death trap. We own property on the west side of the highway and on the east side of the highway. We have had to abandon the east side because we cannot get our equipment there. To get our equipment there, we pull out of our driveway, get in the right-hand lane, try to get over into the left-hand lane, go up. We were turning at Pisgah, but Pisgah's hauling rocks out of there, so we can't turn there. We have to go to the state road shed, find a place to turn around, go back to the highway, and wait. Last summer, it was 15 minutes before we could get on the highway with our trucks and stuff to come home. So the traffic is going to be horrendous. What's going to happen to the wildlife? We've lived up there for 180 years, and they were there before we were. And we got along just fine. There's deer, moose, elk, and most summers the wildlife ate more of our alfalfa than our cattle did. The winters, you're right. Have you ever spent a winter in Dry Lake? That is one horrendous place. And all of you have gone. You've gone over the mountain to go down to your air flights, to go to work, to do business. And you've got up there, and guess what? That highway's closed. Of all the nerve to close a canyon. I don't know how you're going to get people up in and out up there. I don't know how you're going to get them into the highway either. There's got to be some way to get them onto the highway. And then there's the Dyer's Woad. Any of you are familiar with the Dyer's Woad? It's that lovely yellow plant that grows that came over from Brigham City. In a normal year, we spend between $4,000 and $5,000 to control it. Donald Jepson's farm was free of weeds because he took care of it. You could go up there in the summer and you couldn't find a dyer's woad. He loved it and he took care of it. South of the road shed, on the box elder side, is rocks and rattlesnakes. And I hope that this just gives you an idea of some of the things that I think about as a property owner that most people wouldn't think about. I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you very much. I think Brian Jepson wanted to make some comments.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brian Jepson. I own property there in Dry Lake, along with Donald's family. And we have, like they say, farmed it forever. My grandpa owned that. In fact, years ago, back in '39, I think, my grandpa actually sold land to Donald to pay a hospital bill of $3,000. So, you know, it's been in the Jepson family for a long time, but I want to reiterate a little bit of what Larry said about water. I have actually been to the Corps of Engineers down in Salt Lake, and if we go through the pan, or anybody goes through the pan, we will destroy every reservoir within 100 miles of us. And that is from them guys. I've had my backhoe up there. We've had track holes up there, cleaning out the dredges in our water holes to keep them a little bit depth so we got enough water for our cattle. And if within a half hour, when I'm up there digging, all of a sudden I've got somebody coming through the gate and they're saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just cleaning my water hole out. I know I can't go too deep, because if we go too deep, we will go through the pan." And another thing is also the lake. Years ago, Donald actually, 82, when the water come across the road, he was actually able to irrigate once, 1 year, because there was so much water that the state let us. Now we can't, because across the other side of the highway, over by the trees where everybody knows that McBride's Walkers puts trailers over there, and that tree there on the road is a inlet for the water that comes from us and travels over there, and that's actually Wellsville's water. I don't know if you knew that, but that's where they get the water from, and it goes down to the pump house on the corner. So water rights in Dry Lake is a huge thing, and I cannot remember the depth that we were told, but I don't think you can drill over 100 feet, but don't hold me to that. I cannot remember, because I haven't been down to the Corps of Engineers since 2021 or 2020 or 2001. Somewhere in there is when I went down and talked to them. But this water thing is a huge thing, because if we destroy it, like Larry says, we lose all of our water plus reservoirs around. And I know places over in Harper Ward area, Honeyville, that gets water from us. They can tell if we're dry or we're heavy with water in the year, because their springs on the other side are either running or they're dry. This year, I think we're going to have a dry year. I'm worried about our cattle just because we didn't get the moisture. This was a mild year. But water is a huge issue up there, and I hope you take that into account.
Thanks,
Thank
Brian.
you. Yes.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
All of that property up there is zoned FR 40 now. Is there any A10 property that you own or the other people own?
Incorrect. Everything's at A40.
Everything is FR 40?
Yes.
Okay.
From the state line, and I'm not sure about Box Elder, because I'm actually in Box Elder because I'm from Manaway. But it's like they say, I go that way, they come this way, and me pulling my equipment up from Manaway, at least the state gave me a turnout there at Sherwood Hills so I can come around decent. But when I was hauling cows last week, Memorial Weekend, I'm glad by afternoon we were done because the traffic is ferocious.
That was the wrong weekend.
Well, I was out of hay and I didn't have a choice. And I finally got the fence fixed, you know. But, and another thing, to my knowledge, they say that there's 150 acres of farm ground up there. There is 40 acres of farm ground just right there in Fourth Valley, what we call Fourth Valley. That's all that was ever farmed. Everything else was weed, rocky, and whatever. So just to let you know. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other comment?
I'm Tom Bailey, the mayor of Wellsville. We have a couple of concerns, and one of them has been stated that water is a big concern. That water in that area was taken to court in, I think it was 1983. And at that time, most of the water in that canyon was given to Wellsville City with the exception of 4.2% that went to the Lindley family. And I know when Johnson's built that road through there, they checked that water right out and they pumped water out of Dry Lake to help build the road, and they paid Wellsville City for that water. The second problem is fire to protect that area. Now, Wellsville City goes to Sherwood Hills, so Wellsville City would have to protect everything up to the county line. And I don't know where you'd get the water to fight a fire in homes up in that area. So we would rather have it stay, 40 acres, and you cannot create new water. So where is the water coming from? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a quick comment. I'm Donald Jepson's son-in-law, Jed Fabricius, and I think he's speaking to me in the back room there right now. I know that he transferred a little bit of his water shares to make it possible for the Thompsons to build one home up there. That was an agreement that he had, and we don't have an issue with him building one home up there. But the way this has been presented, a potential for 83, that's the issue. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew what Donald's intentions were before he died. He made that transfer. Thank you.
Let's wait and see if there's any more.
Let's hold on.
Comments.
Yeah, is there any other comment? Would you like to respond?
Yeah, so,
Would you?
talking about water, you guys bring up a great point. If there's not,
Hey, too, if you're
I'm sorry.
addressing,
I'm
you're
sorry.
looking this way.
There's been the concern addressed for sufficient water. If there's not sufficient water to build 80 houses, certainly 80 houses can't be built. If there's not water to build 5 houses, 5 houses can't be built, even if it was zoned, to be able to prove that. So I guess that backs up our claim that we don't intend on putting 80 houses in there. There's not hardly enough water for just a couple. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Sorry, something else come to me. Brian Jepson again. When Goebel had bought that land from Donald, and I'd actually talked to the people who were up there putting the road in that they did off of the state sheds, and then they put it down in below where you couldn't see, and that they were going to put a well in, and then that's when the Corps of Engineers got involved, because they found out that he was putting in, because Goebel was actually going to put in a mini Jackson hole. with motels and property around, doing things that he wanted to up there. And so that's why that ended up getting shut down, and then he ended up, for years now, has tried to sell it. So it has been in process of once of doing that, and it did not pan through. It fell through because of the water again. So.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other comment. I take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So I think we've talked quite a bit. I think it's,
Yeah, I think my opinion hasn't changed. The proposal as it is, I would have to go with a denial at this point and figure that they can come back and restructure that rezoning of something else that might fit more what they want. So I would go with the denial at this point.
okay. Jason, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, that was really, well, among multiple concerns, that was the major one was just the scope of this, and if we're really looking at one or two homes, there's one parcel there that, you know, one or two homes could work on. But just additionally, the concerns of the impact on services, and you know, we've heard a lot of things about water and fire and you know, school bus operation and refuse. That's a major impact on this area because of the distance, because of the location, all of those things. And so, yeah, definitely, I do have my concerns there.
Okay. Very good.
Because of all the concerns expressed, I'm in favor of denial.
Okay. Phil? You have any comment?
Yeah, I have to kind of go along with the idea that, you know, this 83 separate lots kind of blew me away when I seen that. But I think I wouldn't be opposed if they were to build, you know, take one parcel and get it zone changed to A10 so they could build one or two homes. But the impact is something we have to be concerned about, and I'm sure they would deal with that. Could work something with the county to get their garbage taken down to where it could be picked up, and school bus and everything, so it could be took care of, so.
Okay. So I think if there's no other discussion, I'd to take a motion. Do we have a motion? We want to go forward?
I'll make the motion that we deny the Thomas Ranch rezone as proposed. I've made a recommendation, yes, that we deny the Thomas Ranch rezone based on the findings and conclusions.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
I can second that.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hope to see you again with a little different proposal.
But you guys too will have the opportunity to go to the
side of the
council.
highway. Sorry.
Well, no, this will go to the council then. So it was a recommendation that will go before the council, so.
Yeah.
County council has the final say on this.
So going on to our next item, the Christie rezone. Angie, did you have anything on that?
Yes, this is a request to rezone 5 acres from the agricultural zone to the RU2 zone. The rezone would allow the parcel to be legally divided into a maximum of 2 separate lots as part of a subdivision process. As before, we've identified some general information as it pertains to the property to assist Planning Commission and County Council in coming to their decision. As far as land use context, there are 7 parcels immediately adjacent to the subject property in unincorporated county, 3 with a home and an average lot size of 4 acres, and 4 without a home and an average lot size of 11 acres. The boundary of Mendon is immediately to the north of this property, and then also to the west, but it's separated by a single parcel. And this is the staff report that I made an error on it. But anyway, so once you expand that boundary to a quarter mile, there are 5 parcels in Mendon City with a home, and an average size of 2.9 acres. And parcels without a home have an average size of 10 acres in unincorporated county and 9.7 in Medicine. When we expand that buffer for context to a half a mile of the proposed rezone, parcels with a home in the county average 3.1 acres, there's 30 of those, and 1.3 acres in Mendon, which are 46 parcels. As mentioned, the proposed RU2 zone would allow a maximum density of 1 lot for every 2 acres, whereas the A10 zone currently on the property could not further divide the property. As mentioned, they're adjacent to other single-family dwellings, agricultural uses, and the boundary of Mendon City. It is within the Mendon City future annexation area. We did notify them, but did not receive a comment on this request. The nearest RU2 zone is immediately east of the subject property. You may recall this rezone was approved as the Mountain View Meadow rezone in November of 2018. It was a rezone for 6.29 acres located at the corner of 2000 South that allowed a 3-lot subdivision with minimal improvements in February 2018. The ordinance identifies the purpose of the RU2 zone and includes the following: to allow for residential development in a moderately dense pattern, that could allow for rural subdivisions, and to allow for clustering plans larger than a single parcel. This type of development should be located and designed to not reasonably impede adjacent agricultural uses, nor to unreasonably conflict with the development standards of adjacent municipalities. The zone must be appropriately served by suitable public roads, have access to necessary water and utilities, and have adequate provision of public services. So access to the site is via a county road, 2000 South. It's an existing county facility that provides access to multiple dwellings, agricultural uses, vacant lots, and provides through access to SR 23 and to 5400 West. It is classified as a major local road, consists of an average of 22 feet wide with paved surface, and is maintained year-round by the county. The fire department had no comments on the rezone, but would evaluate future developments and access. Logan City Environmental does provide refuse collection, and again, noticing we did not receive any public comment. With this rezone request, staff has not made a recommendation, but has provided draft language for either a recommendation of approval or denial that the planning commission come to a decision. That concludes staff's report.
Thanks, Angie. So looking over this, anybody have any comments before we open the public hearing?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This piece, 5 acres, and it has a home already on it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm ready for public hearing.
Okay. Take a motion to open the.
I'll make a motion that we open a public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Okay. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now open. Just like to encourage everybody that comes up again, just a reminder to state your name. We want to be clear and concise. Just include all pertinent facts within your knowledge, and then the other thing is just the concise argument. So, does anybody have any comments?
I do have an aerial of the property.
Welcome.
So my name's Aaron Christie. I own this property and I live in the house there. So it is 5 acres. What I'm looking to do is potentially subdivide that in half, so we have like 2.5 acre lots. And I haven't really decided. I may build a personal home on that if approved, or the neighbor next door to me that's in the RU2 zone in that little subdivision has expressed interest in buying the property from me. We haven't really decided which way we're going to go. We just wanted to see if it was possible to get it rezoned. So we're not throwing any massive development in there. I just potentially just one house there, and that's what we're looking to do. So my house is currently on a well. The property, the new home will obviously have to have a well as well. So we have really good water there. It's an artesian well on the property I currently have. just pushes right out of the ground. So we don't really foresee any issues there. So that's my intention. If you guys have any questions for me?
You got access into that lot in the back, how do you get to that?
I can't really touch your TV, but so the access is, yeah, right where she's pointing there. That's about 115 feet wide right there. And the intention would be to have the driveway be between the two homes, kind of on the property line there, and build the house kind of a little further back in the field.
So how wide would that access be? You'll use the whole 100 feet to get back to the other lot, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would need to meet the 20-foot wide minimum requirement for
Yeah.
driveway.
Sorry, I was just saying the amount of frontage that would probably go with the property would be about 115 feet.
He has to have a minimum of 90 feet when he goes through the subdivision if this were approved, so
Okay.
that is an area of concern that we want to make sure he has enough in order to do a rezone, because he could rezone it and not be able to do a subdivision.
Yeah, and that measurement's coming off of like the side of my finished yard you can see there. So from the edge of the green grass there to the property line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did Mendon City respond?
No. How close is this to the boundary?
You can see the boundary is right.
It borders it?
There's actually one part, well, yeah.
Is there another
back,
parcel in
it does.
between?
Where's it on the back? On the back.
Okay.
And that's the line, the city line right there, east side too, but then on the west there is this parcel that buffers it.
And then the, just to the right, as we see there, that is an RU2
This one, yeah.
zone parcel as well.
That red highlight? Okay.
So it adjoins
The other
that
RU2?
RU2.
Okay.
I believe this backyard area, or backyard, this area is a preservation area for a particular plant, but I can't recall. There's an iris. An iris.
Ute Ladies Tresses is what it's called.
Okay. Anybody else here for the public hearing for this item? If not, I'd take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. So going back to these RU2s, it's always, it's been interesting to see them come in and, where it's on the Mendon boundary there, I wish Mendon would have responded with their annexation plan, what they're wanting to do there, so.
We've always asked if the applicant has approached Mendon City or the city as well too.
And in the past, Mendon has been very responsive, so in my mind, their silence does speak, but, yeah, but typically they have been very responsive.
Okay.
I'll just make a quick comment if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We always struggle with the most dense zoning where we place it. To me, this one's probably as clear cut as any. It abuts the city boundary with Mendon City. It is in contact with another RU2. Mendon City chose not to comment. Those are the things that really lead me to say, yeah, this one's pretty easy to go with an RU2 in this particular situation.
Just to add to that, I agree with Commissioner Watterson. It's on the road too.
And it's on the road,
It's on
yeah.
an important road, so developed road.
Okay.
I'd make a motion
Okay.
that we suggest to the county council approval of the Christie rezone with the conditions and conclusions. I'm not seeing
There's no conditions on
no
rezone.
conditions because it's just a rezone for now, but yeah, anyhow.
So we have a motion do we have a second?
Her suggestion of approval.
For the suggestion of approval, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Our next
I have
item.
to say, that's the easiest RU2 that's ever come in front of this planning commission.
I was kind of looking at that and I was like, man, when was the last time we passed one of those, you know?
Yeah, the one next door was pretty easy too.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So Angie, yeah, do you have anything for us on the Cache Valley Straw Maze?
Briefly go through the.
We've got some people anxious here. They've had to wait all the way to the end.
Fun one, huh?
Uh,
Should have put this one, the fun for, the fun for last, so.
To operate a recreational facility on a 20-acre portion of a 35.7-acre residential lot in the agricultural zone that is part of the Blue Hawk subdivision. The project is described in the applicant's letter of intent and site plan, which are attachment A of the staff report. So per that letter of intent, the applicant is proposing to operate a recreational facility that operates for 6 weeks in the fall and 4 weeks in December. Activities that they listed and proposed for the first year of operation would be a seasonal straw maze filled with 1-ton bales, covering approximately an acre and a half. A seasonal straw maze with Christmas lights, a 2-acre pumpkin patch, haunted straw maze in October on Friday and Saturday nights, mechanical swing, mechanical pool, straw pyramid, jump pad, slide, and child-friendly zip line. Future activities they're also considering are listed there. The applicant states during the fall, the number of employees will be between 5 to 8 on weekdays and 30 to 40 on weekends. The number of employees during the winter activities would be 10 to 15. Operating hours are typically in the afternoon to late night, Monday through Thursday in the fall from 4 to 11, Fridays 3 p.m. to midnight, Saturday 10 a.m. to midnight. And then winter schedule hours would be 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 5 p.m. to midnight Friday to Saturday. Per the letter of intent, the applicant states there would be 30,000 customers each season and will use 5 acres to the east end of the property adjacent to SR 23 as a parking lot. They do provide a site plan showing a parking lot with a total of 68 parking stalls and 40-foot wide drive aisles. But a condition of approval would be that this type of use does require a parking analysis, so they would have to provide that to determine the actual number of parking spaces required and then provide a site plan that reflects that and meet all the requirements as to width, distance, curbs, etc. Refuse generated on the site would be addressed with a rented dumpster, and rented porta potties would be proposed for customer use. The only structure that they've proposed is a ticket booth, about 440 square feet. Lighting would be provided by 6 to 8 light poles that would reach 20 feet high. So they would be directed out into the property with shields to avoid light pollution on adjacent properties. A 5-foot high wire mesh and barbed wire fence is proposed to border the recreational facility. And equipment used as part of the facility includes the mechanical swing, a 4-wheeler to pull a barrel train, a loader to move straw bales, and a caboodle style of a type of tractor for pumpkin patch rides. Since their property is a legal parcel, as it is lot 1 of the Blue Hawk subdivision, which was recorded in 2007 and has not changed size or configuration. Under the code, a recreational facility is defined as a place either indoor or outdoor, designed and equipped for the conduct of sports and leisure time activities that is operated as a business and or open to the general public. A recreational facility is operated for a period greater than 30 days per year, and we also include incidental transient lodging. Per the schedule of zoning uses, the recreational facility requires approval of the conditional use permit in the agricultural zone. Proposed CUPs must not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare of persons residing or working in the vicinity. And a conditional use shall be considered detrimental if it causes unreasonable risk to the safety of persons or property because of vehicular traffic or parking or other similar risks, or it unreasonably interferes with the lawful use of surrounding property. So the primary activities as they've identified is a recreational facility that would operate 10 weeks out of the year on 20 acres of the full parcel. With the conditions of approval, staff believes that proposed use will not cause unreasonable risk to the safety of persons or property. So So access to the site, as you can see, they have, on the eastern border, access to SR 23. There's also County Road 2000 North. As proposed in the submittal request, they're taking all access off of State Road 23. So a condition of approval is that access is prohibited off of 2000 North and County Road, as a review was not conducted on that. My understanding is they have not spoken to UDOT yet, and given the number of anticipated customers, I would anticipate that there would be significant road improvements, turning lane, et cetera, that may be required. So they would have to get that all in place and work with UDOT prior to recording their permits. Parking, again, would require parking analysis, even though they've shown us a site plan of 680 parking spaces. They will need to work with Logan Environmental to provide services to that rental dumpster to remove refuse. Fire department reviewed the plan, didn't have specific comments, but is requiring that they submit a plan review to the county fire district for review and approval. There would likely be a number of additional requirements and improvements that would have to be completed prior to recording of this permit, again, to ensure the health and safety of people both using our recreational facility and accessing it or driving by on SR. The applicant states again that they'll be utilizing portable toilets, so they must also get written confirmation from Bear River Health Department about the numbers that would be required for the anticipated number of people who will be visiting the site. The Utah Code states that a conditional use shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with applicable standards. So known or reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the use include parking, which we talked about. It's anticipated to draw a large number of vehicles to the site, so they will need to get approval from UDOT for access and improvements to the road. And then the parking area must be clearly marked to allow for clear drive aisles, turnaround areas, and to ensure that vehicles do not block emergency access. Noise is a reasonably anticipated detrimental effect to the surrounding properties. There are residential uses immediately south of the property in the north and then across SR 23. Light pollution. They're proposing to use a number of tall, bright lights to illuminate the site during the evening hours, and they are operational during the majority of the evening hours. So those residential dwellings adjacent to the property may be detrimentally affected by light pollution. So applicant, prior to recording the permit, must provide a site plan for review and approval that shows the precise location of light poles and provide detailed information on the design and how light pollution will be shielded. There's also potential for visual nuisance. Again, they state that this will only operate for 10 weeks of the year, that there are these large straw bales that will be in place. So there's the potential for the straw bales and other equipment to become a visual nuisance if not maintained throughout the year. So the applicant, as a condition, must remove old straw bales and other equipment during the off-season to ensure it does not become a visual nuisance. Another potential detrimental effect is land disturbance and stormwater. To prepare this large of a site for the recreational facility will result in a significant amount of land disturbance. So they must provide, as a condition of approval, site improvement plans prepared by a licensed professional for the review and approval of Development Services and Public Works departments, and must include scaled site plans, site grading, site drainage, and site details. The stormwater report is also required to detail how the development will manage rainfall on site and prevent the off-site discharge of precipitation. This request was noticed. And notices were mailed to all property owners. I didn't receive any written comment, but again, we have recommended 15 different conditions to try and alleviate any potential detrimental effects, which are listed there. And with those conditions in place, staff is recommending approval. That does conclude staff.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Just one question on there. One of the conditions in there was directing use to Logan Environmental. That's who we use here, but I wondered whether that condition should just be arrange waste hauling, or, I don't know. That just kind of stuck out to me. Some places may consider, another option for hauling waste. It's kind of the given in this community, because that's where it's at, but
And that was the assumption of mine, but yeah, we can make that change.
And I'm not set on that, but it just kind of stuck out to me. Well, redirecting them to a specific vendor, even though it's a governmental entity, I don't know.
No, I honestly just didn't even consider that.
I
Yes,
was
we could
thinking,
definitely
the
change
condition could be appropriate waste hauling. If they own a dumpster and they haul it to the landfill themselves, as long as it's done in a timely manner, who cares who hauls it?
Yeah, no, I don't have an issue.
I had one, as I was reading over this, I just had one thing for clarity. By listing out every individual thing that they're doing, does that limit them on doing anything other than those things?
Yeah, so when people submit unconditional use permits, we ask them to think of the whole range of things, because if they limit themselves to just certain specific things, they will have to come back time and again in order to expand on that approval or the request. So, yeah, so they've kind of, they may not be anticipating doing all of this immediately, but it's something that they're thinking of in the future, and it just allows them to continue operating and expand in accordance with this approval, instead of having to come back for an amended conditional use permit each time you want to do something different.
It just said year one, this is the plan, we just don't have a year two or anything else going past year one, so each time, I mean, is this a 1-year CUP? I mean, it's not, it will continue, right? But that was the only thing, it's just a 1 year. As things grow, we've seen other things, recreational facilities and other things, they've grown and they add things. Well, if it's not listed in the beginning, they'll have to come back and do an amendment to the CUP, right? Okay.
Yeah, we do direct people that they should put every potential thing that they're thinking about, even if it doesn't happen right at the beginning, just to avoid them having to keep coming back here every time they change.
So was there any anticipation of food trucks or vendors or?
Yeah, I believe in there.
Listed
food trucks. They do refer to trucks.
So if there is, then the health department's okay with portable toilets and food distribution, there's no hand washing or anything else there?
Well, again, they would have to get confirmation
That'd be
from Fair
to them.
Is this a 5-lot subdivision?
Yes.
And there's no CCRs or anything else that way, it's an HOA?
Yeah, they have access up County Road. Yeah, just this one particular lot, it's a lot larger than the other 4. None of the neighbors responded? No, they were usually 90.
Okay.
I figured they would talk to the neighbors.
I'll ask the same question on this one. The closest fire department for fire service would be Mendon, I would imagine.
And I just want a clarification on condition number 8, where you're saying that they would be prohibited from using County Road 200 North or 2000 North because they haven't requested it?
Yeah, they did not request it. It was, and so we, as part of our review process, we didn't consider it, or when improvement might be required if they use that. So because they have not proposed it, we are assuming all access will be coming off of 23 and it cannot come off the county road.
So if they wanted it off, if they couldn't get it through 23, they would have to resubmit and come back and ask for that change.
Is this one for public?
Yeah, with that number of entities.
The road and see what kind of upgrades. So when is the number of people attending there brought to the attention of emergency services or whatever? How many people need to be in a public place before that needs to be monitored like we did on Cherry Peak or whatever else?
Yeah, I'm not sure. At Cherry Peak it's 1,000.
Mass gathering.
Fortunately,
Is that the limit or is that the max?
At 1,000, it trips the mass gathering requirements. I'm right on that, John, I think. I think that's the correct number, and that requires, and I'm not, haven't studied that recently, but it's emergency services, portable toilets.
So is that something we'd have to watch, or what do we do in this situation based on the number they're saying is coming here?
I mean, fire department did review this request and didn't specifically call anything out, but I think that's also why they want the full site development plan submitted to them prior to recording any permit to make sure all necessary emergency service stuff is in place for them.
So that's kind of covered there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot going on with a few unknowns, including access, so they can give a detailed response, but they want to have development plan done first before they can record it and make any improvements necessary.
So the 668 seems like plenty of parking in my mind. But they seem like really narrow stalls. Is 8.5 just the minimum that anyone has to do?
That's a very standard across zoning code requirements. But again, that's why I require a parking analysis also for this type of use. So they'll have an engineer do an analysis to determine how many parking spaces may actually be needed.
Yeah, and the six handicap doesn't seem like very many.
Yeah, so, and then we would get a full plan that showed all the dimensions and everything.
Based on that parking, you would assume there'd be more than 1,000 there. 668, 2 or 3 cars, so you're well in advance of that.
Now, the parking, are these primitive parking spaces, or developed?
Like a surface. What surface is the parking? Is that what you mean, what surface? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Matt, I don't know if public works would have some input into, because of the land disturbance and putting in the parking, if you would require certain material in the parking lot.
I mean, I look at a seasonal thing and I think we're gonna go put a bunch of gravel or asphalt out there, and that seems counterproductive to the overall thing if it's seasonal. But on the opposite side end of that, a rainstorm during this time could be detrimental. Could be detrimental to the overall health and well-being.
Then it becomes mud wrestling.
The same thing with like the handicap zone, you know, if you have to have handicap parking, are there pathways or paved ways for the wheelchair to get to some of the events too?
And I would anticipate that all be part of the parking analysis when we finalize the site plan for the number of parking spaces required. And because that is also indicative of the number of stable parking spaces.
But that wouldn't necessarily cover like pathways to the various events.
We would definitely take a look at that, but no, it's not the plan that they're
Any other comments?
I think it'd be interesting to hear from the applicant.
So, yeah. Is the applicant here tonight? Yes. Would you like to come up and address us?
My name's Spencer Stoker, and I'm part of the Cache Valley Straw Maze group. Do you have specific questions to start off? I mean, where do you want me to go? I mean, it's kind of a broad broad topic here with what's going on. If you'd like a little...
I have two for you. So, they mentioned the possible egress, Chris, what are they called on the off-road? Egress?
Ingress and egress,
Ingress, egress. Have you guys, by chance, talked to UDOT?
Yes, so that is one thing that we have spoken with UDOT, and we do have permission to access the property. To create a turning lane, it is, they said, 7 turns at peak hours. So the busiest time of the day increased by 7 turns, okay? So turning in, that would require a turning lane. So that, so we have looked into that. We know the entrance and the exits and the process that we have to, we have to have, I don't remember the exact dimensions. We have to have so far paved coming in to the property, and so wide and things like that. We do have that. And
did you, by chance, get a quote on that, what it would cost?
No, I don't have a quote yet.
Probably definitely want to.
Yes,
But
most definitely.
the
Well,
other
we
question I
did.
had for you is, and I'm not, I admire you guys for coming. I think it's an awesome idea. I look at these conditions though, and it's almost overwhelming. Why do you want to go through all this?
So a little back history. So I live and farm in Burley, Idaho, and we've done this for 12 years up there. And then I have 2, and we have a website. If you guys want to check out what we do up there, you can see it. We are around different areas, but we do this on our farm, and it's been wonderful. And then there were 2 kids who worked for me growing up in high school, and then they came down to school here, Utah State, and they've been here and they're going to school, and they're like, hey, we're going to be here for a long time, and there's not that much that goes on during these events or similar to this. We would like to put one in. Will you help us and partner up and do this? So said, yeah, let's look into it. Let's do it. So we came down, we looked for several pieces of property. We settled on this one. And so that's why, realistically, I mean, did we anticipate all of these things and the hoops and things to jump through? No, we didn't. Because we didn't think it would be that big of a deal, you know, as far as what we're going on. You know, we say 30,000 people. These are all projections, right? Going off of Burley's population, we get 17,000 people to our event. Okay, so these are projections, 17,000 people to our event, and we have a population of 40,000 people. In this area, roughly 120,000 people, so going 3 times, giving us a rough estimate. That's all we can do. So we put that in there, but that 30,000 is spread over 6 weeks, correct? And the most that we have in one night is 2,000 people, or in one day, and that's several hours in the day that we're open. So they're not there all at the same time. Never are over 1,000 people at once. People come and go. That's just how it works. So with the parking lot, you know, we put in X amount of acres, projecting, you know, kind of what we will need, and then we had no idea that we were going to need to calculate how many spaces. So once we said the acres, then we just did the math and put in the spaces. So the 668 spaces or whatever was just the byproduct of how many acres we were using. Not set in stone by any means. And it would just be, you know, another question and concern that I have as we talk about land disturbance and things. We don't have to move that much ground to put this in. I mean, if we level things out to put gravel in for a parking lot, and that's all it would be, and smooth things up. It's not like planning on paving the whole thing or, you know, making everything like that. And so, yes, with all these conditions, it is overwhelming, but we have seen the effect. So doing this, we get several people actually from the Cache Valley area that come to Burley and tell us, we come up here because word of mouth, we know what kind of job you guys do, the business that you create, and how entertaining it is, how they enjoy it. And also, they don't have that much to find here, what we've been told. And so, which is hard for me coming from Burley, right? I'm just like, oh, Logan, crazy. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Burley, but very small. So, but yes, it is something that's, you know, these activities, once again, small-minded farmer, if you will, you know, just put it up, do things. That's you know, my mentality. But coming here, once again, like was stated before, we thought it was important to get the approval and go through the proper steps. Not anticipating so many conditions, but I still think that the value that it brings to the area, the potential that it has to increase in things to do, increase job opportunities for high schoolers, college students. Like I said, I mean, those are real numbers. The 40 people on a weekend, I mean, that's really what we do. That's not a projection, that is real numbers. And that, you know, that's a lot for just a small thing. And it's, you know, something that's fun, teach work, small ag experience in different ways. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question in a roundabout way. It is overwhelming, but
really good.
And give you kind of our background.
And I think you did a good job too with appreciate your honesty and appreciate your, you know, the detail in your application. I think it's good.
Yeah, Spencer, if you've done this up in Burley, why, obviously a lot of that, you know, would be overwhelming to me to say, oh, I'm gonna start up from scratch.
Yeah.
If you've been doing this for years up in Burley, you know how to make it happen. But yeah, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have quite these many restrictions in Cache Valley. But as our population has grown, a lot of those things have changed.
Understandable.
And so that's, again, when you come to planning and zoning, we try to look at those, you know, what are the big picture, what could, I guess, the biggest impact to the county, and then work, you know, to protect on that basis. So there's a lot of conditions there. And, but I admire your ambition, you know, but it would impact that neighborhood. So apparently you got some neighbors here that maybe they're in favor of it. I don't know.
And we anticipate that. That's understandable. We're not trying to hide things back here or anything like that. I mean, that's completely understandable, and we, invite that. And if there's ways that we can work around things and solve issues, I mean, we're very open-minded. We're not just gonna try to force our way into anybody or anything like that. Nothing good ever comes from that. And so, but is there any other? Yes.
Can I ask you just a question on probably just one specific area, safety? I think the straw maze is, I mean, that's the name of it, so that's probably the main attraction. Is that right? The other activities are just kind of around that, yeah. But the straw maze is there. How do you plan for safety for that? Just a couple of things, keeping the bales vertical and not falling on people, and what about fire? Yep. Somebody flicks their bic inside of that straw maze, that sounds like a potential disaster if you've got several hundred people inside of a place that's hard to get out of. Just as in my day job, those are things that make me nervous. So
most definitely.
Tell me about that.
Thank you. Is there a way that can we pull up our website on here? BurleyStrawmaze.com? You can kind of get an idea of the different things that we do. As we do that, to address your question, so safety, yes, is a huge concern. So the bales tipping over, right? We pinch all of our bales, make them tight. Haven't had any tip over in 12. I mean, with somebody.
Stack them.
Yes, they're too high. So it's 8 feet high, right? The walls are, and there should be pictures if we scroll here through here.
That looks like they're not stacked. That's why I was asking.
Oh well, yeah, that's kind of an aerial.
Okay.
Do you want to come do this, Dave, while I talk?
There you go.
There's a couple, if you want to go through there. So yes, it's 8 feet high. Hallways are 4 feet wide enough to get a wheelchair through. It's uneven ground. I mean, that is, I mean, it's, on a farm, it's uneven ground. We have multiple care facilities, disabled groups, kids come through. It's a wonderful experience. We lead them through. It works fine with their wheelchairs. Safety, the bales are pinched. They're all tight. There's no, we haven't, I mean, not that it can't happen, knock on wood, right? I mean, 12 years, have never had a bale tip over while people are in there. Smoking, definite concern. We are very high on that. We have ladders spread across the top. We have fire extinguishers spread across the top. We work closely with the fire departments, making plans, making, different things that they have that they would like us to abide by. We are more than welcome, and we're welcoming to that and open to that as well. We're not, and then, so I guess, was that most,
yeah, I mean, really those are two safety issues that kind of stuck
yeah,
out to me.
and we always have a minimum of 2 employees on top. So they're walking across, right? Watching for people who are lost, direct them out. They're also watching for people pushing bales or smoking or things like that. No smoking signs, obviously, everywhere. And it's just, we talk, working with the fire departments, they give us restrictions. Okay, if somebody wants to smoke, these are the designated areas, and we have that all planned out. We talk to people, see somebody smoking, we very uncomfortably go ask them to stop and explain things and go over that, but very importantly as well. So.
Up in Burley, what's your parking lot made of there? Are you
Gravel.
Doing on ground? Or
Yep, gravel, bare ground.
Gravel.
Yep. Yeah. So.
Did you guys plant pumpkins already?
We do? Oh, no, well.
Out there?
Not here, no. We didn't.
Hey,
weren't
just
that
out of
faithful.
curiosity, how many bales did that take, or does that take?
The maze itself is about 1,000 bales.
So with that, in reading the county synopsis, I think there was concern there of the bales left. Do you guys
Yeah.
resell them? Or
Yep, we do. We work up there. We own a dairy, right? So we just take our bales and use them there. Can you go to the Christmas thing?
I figured you would, but I just wanted to confirm
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so we look, we'll buy the bales, or we rent them from dairies, or we buy them and resell them to dairies. And then also, and that was one question, what is deemed See, and then we use them in the Christmas as well. We put lights inside the maze, and so the tunnels are filled and things like that. But so whatever is deemed a nuisance, right, we will work around that. I don't know if, to me, it's hard to understand coming from a farmer, right, seeing a stack of bales, on the piece of property that is considered a nuisance. If that's the case, then, then that's tough luck. I mean, we'll
Especially
really
the
have.
fact that I think there was possibly concern there that you just leave them and deteriorate, but
No.
you'll be cleaning them up,
Yep.
hauling them off.
If, and that is, that is something that, if we have to, I mean, ideally, well, we will clean them up, right? Because every year it's a new design in the maze. So they do get moved, right? And, positioning, they're not going to be, the maze itself is not going to be right up against the road or right up against houses. It's going to be off back in the property, and for several reasons. And so that is, the nuisance thing, I think, is something that definitely will be addressed, but I think that's something that needs to be brought to our attention, right? People say, okay, here's what we need to do, and we can work around that. If that's, cleaning up, also, it's brought up in there what we are going to do in the off-season. Same, we clean it up, use the back far corner for storage for our other activities, like the swing and different things that we can store, put those away in the back corner. And then growing our pumpkins, sunflowers, we talked about tulips, grazing cattle, different animals, potentially starting a petting zoo. Those are different things that, we will do during the off-season that we will continue to, in my mind, and as farmers, be stewards of the land. Not just, it's not going to be an eyesore. The parking lot, is that going to be there most of the time? Yeah, it is. I'm not going to tear up the gravel and farm and then bring in new gravel every year. But I don't think that is once again, an eyesore or a nuisance in my mind. Being the weeds will be kept down, different things like that, so.
Are you fencing the whole perimeter?
So we'll put up just your normal cattle fence or whatever, to start with. If there's other things that we need to do, we will look into that. Another option that we can do is once again, use bales and make a fence as well. So, yeah.
Up in Burley, is your maze there, right next door to houses, like?
Right across the street, yep. There's a main highway on the east side, and then there's the state highway on the east side, a county road on the north, and right across the road is a house. Across to the east are two other homes, and then there is a subdivision up a little ways.
Kind of concerns been raised from adjacent property owners on that project?
No. Well, there has been some parking issues when we had, so this last year was the first year that we've done the Christmas lights, and it was a huge success and kind of surprised us. We weren't, it was our first year kind of anticipating things, and so we weren't ready for the crowd. We had cars double parked on both sides of the road, and that, the adjacent property owners called in, had complaints. That's okay. The next week we had things solved. We had parking attendants. We opened up another section that we had that solved. And so, things just like that, we're flexible and try to make things work.
I would think light and noise are your biggest.
Yeah. And with the lights, same thing. We position them, so, try to do our best there. And it's not, the noise inside the maze, nothing. The bales are very good insulation. You don't hear anything inside the maze. Yes, do you get laughter and screaming outside, going down the slides and on the swings, zip lines, things like that, most definitely. And there are solutions to that. We position our different activities in the right spots. Also, we could, if we have to, put up a wall of bales right behind the houses. That's going to be a wonderful, another wonderful noise barrier. It also, with that, we could go 16 feet high, so that's going to protect from a lot of the light and things that way. And, you know, there's, so yeah.
Just, you know, Brady was trying to gently touch on this, but what we've seen from out of UDOT and what they require or whatever, I mean, you're very likely looking at a six-figure improvement for the turn lanes and that sort of thing. So
And
we just like to make applicants aware of what.
right, and we knew that that would be high, and that is, you know, something that we have taken into consideration with our projections, right, of you know, profit margin and different thing, if we can pay for that.
Biggest investment probably for a single item, I would think.
You operated during the winter time. You did a Christmas thing. If you operated with snow.
Yes. Yep, we have, and, you know, people dress for the occasion. You know, nobody's, during, you know, I guess I don't know what your specific questions are with that, but I mean, yeah, we have.
Just a question, you know, snow removal and clearing snow on gravel is
Right.
a challenge, and getting vehicles in and out on those things. And that was just a question. Oh, it's your operation. That's what you do. But Cache Valley's different than Burley.
Yes.
A little more wind up there.
Yeah. The snow doesn't stay very long.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we get some good storms.
It does.
I can't believe there's 40,000 people in Burley. I mean,
Well, that's Burley and Rupert. That is.
Yeah, what time you
So that's Kasia and Minidoka County, right? So I'm, you know, making the projections the best I can, so.
That's all the questions I have.
Anybody else have any questions for him?
Open it to.
It's an awesome idea.
Comments.
It's not a hearing, we're not having a.
No, we didn't actually open for public
Okay.
comments. We asked him for.
Sorry, what was that?
No, well, I was just saying, we've asked you for your comments, but we haven't opened.
Any other comments? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mitch.
We'd like to open it up for public comment.
There wasn't.
Well, we're actually not a public hearing, so just allowing them to comment.
My name is Tracy Reisner. I own one of the properties that would be adjacent to that middle one. So I own the middle, nope, one down. 14. Yep, there we go. And you guys have brought up a lot of the concerns. I would just like to reiterate those. I know they talk about light pollution and noise. They can put up shields to try and block light, but they're not going to be able to block all the light. It's dark out there at night. We like it dark out there at night. And this is until midnight. A lot of us out there work really early mornings, so there's going to be headlights in and out. There's going to be a lot of light pollution. There's going to be a lot of noise. They talk about putting up straw bales, and they can go up to 16 feet high. But there goes my view. When we built our house out there 10 years ago, we were told this is how this subdivision is. This is not going to be able to be changed. I know the current owner of the property did try to do a bike track out there as recreational use a few years ago, and it didn't go well. There were lots of complaints from lots of neighbors, lots of noise, lots of traffic up and down that road, and it eventually did get shut down. It just didn't go over well. My other concern is, as far as we know, that property is still owned by Mark Kidman, so I'm not sure, is it under contract? Is this somebody else coming in and trying to run this off of Mark's property? One of my other concerns is, I know this is a conditional permit, conditional use. It's supposed to be just 10 weeks out of the year is what I think I heard, but then I also heard them say, you know, oh, we could open it up for petting zoos, we could open it up for other stuff in the off season. So then that's not conditional use. That's going to expand to be something that is year round. So then I'm looking at year round noise, traffic. They've talked about using Highway 23. I don't know how that would be approved or not, but if it isn't approved and they have to use 2000 North, traffic on that road is really bad already. People speed up and down that road all day long. There's a lot of traffic that goes. People that work in Cache County or live in Cache County and work in Box Elder, like Nucor and Autoliv and places like that, use that road a lot. And especially in the summer or the winter, when the Long and Short Divide gets shut down, people from Clarkston come through, they use that road. So that's just that much more traffic. I don't know if you guys have seen the water that can come down that road in the spring. I think every single one of us has almost had our driveways washed out. So if that ends up being the road that's being used, there's that ditch with the culverts, and that ditch has went from no water to overflowing and knee-deep overflowing into our driveways in like a half an hour. So that's some definite concerns.
We could hope for that this year.
It would have been nice to have a little bit this year, maybe not that much, but I know another concern is the groundwater that is out there. We have a half basement is all. It's a daylighted basement. We run a sump pump almost every single spring, except this one. And the ground out there is really soggy. The ground is really damp. You can't even hardly walk out there without sinking into mud in the springtime, and sometimes pretty far into the summer. Sometimes I think we buried a backhoe like back tire deep in the middle of June out there one year. So the ground I think is unstable and soggy, and I would worry on a wet year how those straw bales would set. So, and I think
it is a dry farm out there though, right?
it is a dry farm. Yes. So.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Shay Merritt. I'm in, I guess it's 12, or the original one you pointed at. Yes. So this, just so you know, I'm not opposed to the idea. It's a fantastic idea. I'd love to see it here, just not in my backyard. Yeah. Just to be clear here, my husband and I live right in the dead smack center of Logan, and we hated it. We wanted the privacy, and we spent a number of years searching for the perfect location to put our dream home. And we spent all that time, found the location, and it has just views for miles. And then if you look at the way the lots are set up, I have nothing behind me, and I could guarantee that it was never going to have anything in my backyard. And that was a huge security. That was one of the reasons why we bought this, was because there was nothing that would ever be built back there. It was dry farm only. And that was just, we hit seriously our dream location. And so we love the seclusion. Every one of us, you can ask the Reisners, us, the Miles, the Boyles, they love the seclusion. That's why we bought there. All of us are quite private. We like the quiet. Including one a few further down, she struggled with the noise. The noise carries very well in that area. Sorry, I have a list. So, and we do love the absolute open views. It is gorgeous out there. That's why we picked that spot. And to go in line with what Tracy said, something that we thought was really cool at first is there's no rocks. And so it was really easy to dig. But then we discovered no rocks turned into the biggest nightmare because you sink everything and there's no stability to the ground. Things do not stay. We're having to put every single post we have in concrete. Things do not stay upright. I would worry significantly about the stability of a hay bale being stacked upright. We have horses there. We have to put our hay bales, we do carry very large hay bales as well. We have to put them on pallets, on big solid wood floors to keep them stable. So I would have that as a massive safety concern, just because I know the property and I know the ground there. Obviously, I'm going to be opposed to noise. My husband and I just built a back patio finally, and we have been enjoying it since last summer, and we go sit out there in the evenings, and it is quiet and it is serene, and we watch the sun go down, which is exactly what we did on Tuesday, I think, and it was the most wonderful therapeutic thing to just watch the beautiful sunset, no disruptions. And then we go to bed early, we get up early. The Reisners happen to work swing shifts or what's it called, the night shifts and graveyard, thank you. And so the noise for us especially is a huge deterrent. And I know they're trying to find options, which is awesome that they're trying to find noise options to help us out. But it just takes away everything that we sought for when we bought this land. And it was noisy when the neighbor had a motorbike track and all those loud two-stroke engines just wide open all the time. And it did take away the peace and tranquility we were hoping for. Then, like I said, we have horses in my backyard. In that they'd follow that fence line. That's where my horses sit, is in that back area. And
which one are you in again? The 13?
Yeah. And so
the third one up.
So a concern I have is what's going to happen with large crowds, my horses. I do have good fences, but still the risk of anything spooking or startling or harming my horses. I have 7. I do worry about what's going to happen, what will cause them to startle, or if you get unruly people that want to harass animals that are out there. I am concerned because I don't know who's going to be showing up at these late at night, and I have my animals there that I adore and I've spent a fortune on. I don't want anything to happen to them, whether it be putting them startled through a fence or harassment. The open late, like I said, the light, I'm a horrible sleeper already, and the thought of having additional noise at night, that's why we left Logan, so that we could have quiet nights in the dark. We don't even have a yard light because we want it dark. And then also, I train horses, and I train mostly just mine, but we're always running some through. And I'm not sure what type of safety issues there might be. If there's chaos, I work on, I work a full-time job, so on the weekends I do a lot of training. And I do worry about the noise and safety risks while I'm training or while my daughters are training their young horses, and if there could be any safety issues for my family as well. Those are I guess, my main concerns.
Okay,
thank you.
Any others?
Yes, I'm Kellen Merritt, Shay's husband. Obviously live in the same house. So, just a correction for the record, that parcel went through a zoning change about 3 years ago. The previous owner tried to kind of pull a stunt with us, and he segregated a piece off and tried to sell it, and tried to get it to be rezoned to the R2, I believe. And anyway, that's one of my major concerns, as Tracy already said it. Mark is still currently the owner of this property, and it's been my understanding that it's under contract, but I don't ever want to open that door to have them say, well, hey, we ran Wally World out of there for 2 years, maybe we ought to just see if we can zone it, or, because it's a pretty good parcel, and I don't ever want to see, like my wife said, we bought this property knowing that it was zoned agricultural. It's a T-shaped piece. We knew that with it being agriculture, there was no further expansion. And I don't ever want to have that door even begin to be cracked, for further possible expansion. The reality is that what's being proposed here is that there's a commercial business going to be ran in my backyard, literally. So we go from agricultural zone to commercial business at a blink of an eye. And yeah, it was stated 6 weeks, but once you put in a turning lane and you put in a parking lot, and we're talking 6 weeks out of the year, well, what do we do with the other 46 weeks? That is the dry farm. There are no water rights to it. There is one residential well that I hope the future owners know that is actually in a condemned state, but there's not water out there to run pumpkin patches. There's not, I mean, I'm sure in Burley that there's plenty of water coming from the Snake River, but sorry, in Petersboro, that's not the scenario. Another concern is the electricity. So if we're running lights all the time, it's more than likely going to have to come off of a generator because there's only single-phase power that's available out there. And the only way, if it's being proposed that where everything, the lighting is going to be is coming off of Highway 23, that's way too far of a run to run electricity. It would just be in a single-phase 240 volt outgoing. We already have one neighbor that's currently running his business out of his lot that we've already had problems with the county enforcing that. I would really rather not open up a door to have a second neighbor running commercial business out of residential property zoned for agricultural. It's one thing to have 40 employees if they're sitting in a building and they have designated parking, you pull in, the employees go in, do their work quietly, peacefully, go home. But to have 40 employees, projected 40 employees, overseeing 100 at a time, youth, kids, people who probably don't have a lot of respect for neighbors. I mean, seriously, guys, how would you like Wally World in your backyard? That's what it all comes down to. And then the last thing, as they were scrolling through that website, I don't know if you guys happened to notice that it looked like they had a cannon sitting there shooting a car. I mean, this is what these doors open. Not looking forward to it. So, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's any other comments, but as commissioners, do you have any comments or between us?
I got one solution.
Yeah. You got all this problem solved then.
Buy the property. It's for sale. I seriously hear both sides of it, so I didn't mean that snottily, but same time I'm just saying, yeah. But I actually did have one question. It appears from the photo, maybe staff could answer this, is that a house on 2000, on this parcel?
Yeah. That is the house right there.
So is that for sale too then with it?
The house.
Okay.
The only water rights are associated.
I apologize, I missed that. I thought it was a vacant piece till I saw that, so sorry.
The part of the old 5-lot subdivision process deal, split a parcel 5 ways.
1970 lot?
Yeah, pre-1970 parcel.
Per 50 acres, right?
No, there's
By
no,
residence per 50 acres.
That would be allowed now, one for every 10 acres. I think when this was approved, they
When
could
it
just
was
do 5 lots.
if 5 lots didn't matter how big the property was, as long as you met a minimum half-acre size, I think, for each lot.
So those standards have changed.
Yeah.
That was back when you and I started on the planning commission.
So, we've
Glad
been
you guys
around
are
that
still
long.
here,
Yeah,
so
we're
that'd
not-
Congrats.
We're both pre-1970 here.
I don't know.
No, this is a tough one.
Can I address any of the concerns that they brought up, or is that?
I don't know, Commissioner, do we want to open it back up again a little bit, or, I mean, I think we've heard both sides, I think we can.
Yeah, I think I don't need any more input, I think.
I know one of the conditions here, number 12, it says the applicant must identify and mitigate the detrimental effect of noise impacts on participants or activities when operating a facility such as fencing or screening so as to limit the impact on surrounding properties. A noise impact and mitigation plan must be provided to the Development Service Department for the review and approval of the director.
typo
there? Yes.
And I,
That should be study
Or plan, yeah.
or
Not
plan.
plan.
Plan, oh, plat, okay, plan.
but you're opening up a recreational facility in more or less a residential area, and I don't know how they're gonna mitigate the noise, the confusion, the lighting, everything else. And to me, I have a hard time accepting that the neighbors should just accept that and put up with it, where there's several homes there, so.
Yeah, well, these plans and their mitigation efforts, would, their initial, how they're going to address it needs to come through us before they can record the permit, excuse me. And then subsequently, if they did record the permit and they were not in line with their conditions or their mitigation plan,
They would
we would
drop.
bring it back here for revocation.
Yeah.
Could I make a,
Yeah, please, John.
mine is kind of maybe some question for Angie too, on that, condition 12. Whether the planning commission itself wants to dictate, I assume they could dictate what needs to be on that. That number 12 leaves it very wide open for staff to review and say whether the proposed mitigation is adequate. If there are specific things that the commission would want to see on that, you could make that condition 12 more specific, whether that's bales along a certain property line or whatever. Yeah, that, to me, that number 12 is very vague and
Squishy.
wide and squishy, that we don't know where that's gonna go from here. You could tighten that up if you wanted to. I guess I just say, maybe for, just the benefit of everyone understanding that a conditional use permit is,
I'll approve.
must be given if the potential detrimental effects can be reasonably mitigated. So the discussion, really is, what are those detrimental effects and are there ways to reasonably mitigate them? If there are, then the permit has to be granted. But if they can't be reasonably mitigated,
So those detrimental effects through the study and everything else, that's how they resolve them, right? If we put those specific conditions in place, correct?
So I was just gonna say, in other situations, kennels and things like that, we placed some specific limits on increase in noise at the property line and things like that. That greatly complicates things. It's easier to say, place a row of straw bales X high, there as a condition. I just want to bring up, you know, in the past with a kennel, for example, we've said at the property line shall not, and I can't remember the.
50 decibels.
It wasn't 50. It was above the ambient. It was.
That's right.
It was, and it was a decibel level above the ambient. And, you know, that gives us a hard number that you can physically measure and all of that. May or may not, I mean, it makes it easier to enforce if we walk out and say, okay, we did a study ahead and this is the ambient level and now we're 5 decibels above that, whatever the number is. But it may not, you know, sometimes it's easier to put a condition that is, you'll put a row of straw bales along there. The adjoining properties say, we don't really want straw bales there as well. So I absolutely think tightening that up may be better for both the applicant and the neighbors, because then we have something that is concrete, something that we can really measure and, yeah, exactly.
For the record.
Having said that, I don't have a specific condition.
maybe you could get some follow-up on the comment about generators, whether that's part of the noise that may be happening and where they be if that is.
Good point.
So I like the idea and everything else, but I'm back on to page 3 under compliance with law, 6B, the proposed conditional use must be consistent with the intent, function, and policies of Cache County General Plan and land use, and are compatible with existing uses in the immediate vicinity. So I fall back to what Mr. Olson brought out. this is cool, I like it, straw bales and everything else is cool, but that list of things, that's broad and takes away from the existing use of the vicinity of a residential use.
And I guess I would just counter that with, we have similar facilities like this, you know.
Little Bear Bottoms,
But the hours and everything else and the amount of people are different, I believe.
American West Heritage, is that the right name?
where we're doing straw mazes, or not straw mazes, corn mazes and
Various things like that, that
I would kind of put in the
Bringing
same,
it up for the vicinity. And
the same category, and they're plopped out into the
middle of there. So
so that's,
I can see both sides of that point, but it's not unprecedented to have this type of a use.
There's not as much impact, I don't think, with the Little Bear Bottoms corn maze, or as far as homes being around it, and it's only open for a certain number of days. And I've been there with young men and young women's groups and whatever else, and it's pretty well run and quiet. This facility they're talking about is gonna have a lot of other things going on, gonna be a lot of lights, gonna be a lot of screaming and carrying on. If you've heard little girls scream when they're excited, that carries for miles.
I
And
get the
I have to
impact there.
I sympathize with the homeowners, because having to deal with that now when they didn't deal with it before.
And I do too.
And
I
I
live
know-
out in the middle of nowhere for,
And I know this
for that
thing-
reason as well.
Not in my backyard thing always comes up, you know, but.
But you know, I have to sit back and look at it and say, we have similar uses.
as far as I know, we've not had, you know, massive issues with those. Have there been issues? Yeah, probably. But it's not something,
You know, I'm like you. I've gone to the corn maze at the Heritage Center out there, and there's a lot of screaming kids out there.
it's an impact.
It definitely is. Can it be mitigated? We've got I don't remember what the number was, 15, something like that, conditions on that. And if we tightened one other one up and said, at the property line,
Don't exceed, you know, X decibels above ambient level.
other things that we could consider. Neighbors brought up hours of operation.
Midnight's pretty late, in my book.
You know, is that something that, you know, those hours of operation could be trimmed to lessen the impact on the community?
I just bring those up
as points. I mean, we're faced with a shall approve on one hand, but we've got to be able to come up with conditions
to mitigate those impacts,
and I think we can do it with what we have here, with maybe some additions. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I live in Hyde Park, and I can hear that, like, there's a high school now on the edge of North Logan Hyde Park, but there's also a high school in Smithfield, and I can hear the band practicing in the summer. I can hear the one in Smithfield, and I can hear the one on the North Logan border, and that's kind of part of it. And I sort of feel there's a neighborhood, just, I don't know, 10 or 15 homes that's right by where the new high school came in, and the football field is right there, and the lights and the parking lot, and I think, oh, those families, and thankfully they're about the age that they're all excited with these, you know, these kind of school activities. But also across the street is a 55 and older PUD, and I think, oh, do these people know when they buy their home in the spring that every fall is football season, and every Friday night there's, you know, Friday night lights and the noise. And I work at the city, and I haven't heard any complaints. But so it's not to say that there won't be detrimental effects. I like that it's temporary. I think this is a whole different discussion if it were year round. But I'm with Jason. Like, it is a conditional use, meaning we have to allow it with whatever conditions to mitigate those negative effects.
I know for me, out in my house in Young Ward, you know, it
is so quiet at night.
Cows don't bother you, man.
Hardly. Well, they do in that I can hear them from thousands of feet away, you know, because the sound really travels through our undeveloped part of the county or whatever. And I know for me, even though I live next to a dairy farm, and there's equipment and farm machinery working all hours of the day and so on and so forth, it would be a different kind of impact. And I know if it came to my backyard, I think I'd feel like these residents as well. It'd be a significant change to my quality of life. So I'm having a hard time seeing how the light and the noise could be, you know, fully mitigated. I think it'd be a real challenge to come up with enough mitigation measures to, you know, eliminate the change that these folks might experience.
And I agree with that. I think it will be a challenge, but I also think that's not, you know, we set a condition and say, this is the standard, it's X decibels above ambient, and then that's up to the applicant from that point to.
But then we get to patrol, it's the harder thing. How do we enforce that, you know?
I think the neighbors themselves would.
Yeah,
But until it's up and going, you don't.
right, there's, yeah.
And then, you know,
And then
there's hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in making this thing go, and then all of a sudden it doesn't meet that criteria, and what do we do? We say shut it down after they've invested all this time and money into it, so it's tough. It's a tough one.
have everybody whisper as they go through. I mean, that's pretty tough, you know? Yeah, it doesn't work.
Don't be happy.
But I know that changes is inevitable, because when we built our home back in '76, I'm just dating myself, we didn't have any neighbors within 3 or 4 blocks of us. Now they're just over the fence, because everything to the north got subdivided, and it just kept moving right to us. They put a soccer field northwest of us, and of course you can hear the kids, and that's fine, I don't bother me. And they got a roping arena that they put down there too. And so we just got surrounded in all those years. But, you know, we've dealt with it. I don't have any complaints, but this is a little bit different scenario, because we've had a lot of good people move in, they're good neighbors, and we enjoy them. But you go out and sit around our fire pit at night, and you can hear all these little kids screaming and everything else, and it's different. And it kind of upsets my wife, and I says, well, we're too old to move anywhere else now, so we just dealt with it. So there's gonna be changes made, but I just don't know how to address the fact that when someone gets used to good quiet, and then all of a sudden that's gonna be changed to a lot of noise for 2 or 3 months. A lot of lights and a lot of traffic and whatever else, so. So I can sympathize with the neighbors to this project, so.
John, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to comment how this, since most of the valley floor in the county is A10, there's the potential for this, no matter, just about where any side of the county, for this type of thing. And that's been a political decision, zoning decision, to allow recreational facilities in the A10. So and the definition says that a recreational facility includes, but is not limited to,
But some of the things that's being proposed here, would this be categorized as agritourism?
No, it doesn't meet the definition of agritourism because they're not producing enough of the product or services on site. So they're not.
Unless they raised the straw there.
Yeah, exactly. So
That'd
they're
be
growing
like a
straw
straw
there.
field.
maybe
Yeah, it would.
cornfield,
We'd all raise grain if we could put up that much straw.
I know that Casey Snyder out in Avon, he's doing an agritourism thing, and
Yeah, and we did have a lot of discussion with the applicant regarding that, but yeah, it definitely falls within recreational facilities and not agritourism.
Angie, could you clarify one thing for the record too? If there's a time constraint on a conditional use permit throughout the year, what is it? So one of the comments was that conditional use permit was restricted by time. I was thinking of the conditional use permits that we've done in the past, and I didn't really realize that coming up before. Is there a restraint time-wise that can only be done so many times or throughout so many days? Or is it all declared in the initial application? Is that what we hold them to?
Yeah, that's what we hold them to. Because in the CUP application, we have we require a letter of intent and then have a series of questions, and one of them is hours of operation.
But
So
there's nothing that says up
change
for.
that.
But yeah.
I mean,
But we cannot modify that.
Well-
Going back to Cherry Peak, that was part of their conditions,
Yeah,
as I remember.
I mostly brought that up for clarification on the record, because, again, if somebody thinks that a conditional use permit says you can only do it 6 weeks out of the year, that's not right. But at the same time, if the applicant comes and says, my program will only run 6 weeks out of the year, then our conditional use permit is holding them to the application of 6 weeks. But if they come in and say, I want to run 365 days a year, we know that up front, and that's approved in the application. Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
We got a good one, so.
Question? Does that conditional use?
Come on up to the mic. Mr. Chairman, I was gonna ask if we couldn't have the
Okay.
proponent, respond to a couple of the comments,
Yeah.
because it may
It may
persuade
solve some of
the
our issues.
decision,
Okay.
one way or the other.
Sorry, so is there specific questions that you had? Okay.
Just go ahead with.
So my question that I was gonna ask with the conditional use permit, does that include time to set up? Or is that just operating hours?
What we're telling you is you're not restricted unless your application says.
Right, and I can't remember what, my partner put in there. I don't know if he put in there.
Weekday versus weekend, and so it was, and.
You didn't really give a start date or an end date.
Well, I didn't know if we put 10 weeks or whatever.
You've got 10 weeks.
Was it 10 weeks, is that right?
6 weeks and then 4 weeks.
Okay, so is that just operating, or does that include setup, takedown?
Well, I think since it hasn't been defined, it includes setup and takedown.
That includes setup and takedown as well?
Yeah, that's part of the operation. But yeah, the way this is, it's not clear, so I would assume that it was the entire thing.
Okay. And then, these are all fair points. I'm not upset about the neighbor. I understand, I get it, right? I farm, I don't want anybody buying my ground, I don't want anybody living next to me. I understand that. At the same time, there's only so many pieces of ground for sale, and there is gonna be somebody that I'm going to upset, or we're going to upset doing this. Not trying to upset anybody, we wanna work around it, and I'm not, I get that. And, it was brought up that anywhere we go, there's gonna be, issues. With the ground, I understand that, we don't have water rights. We've looked at buying extra water rights, because to water pumpkins, a drip system does not take an acre of water. You can put in a drip system very, very easy and not worry about that. And also with the level of the water on there, you get a lot of, they know it themselves. Just the sub will help that a lot. We're not planning on taking any of those. Additional water rights would be very minimal for pumpkins and things. They would all be drip systems that we'd have to use. Also with the ground being sub and unstable, not saying that there would never be a situation like that, that's impossible to say, but that is mostly in the spring, which we are not operating in the spring. So to talk about that, you know, that I understand it can never be.
So the Christmas stuff, you're gonna set up the lights and everything in December, obviously, right? So part of that takedown process is gonna be the 1st of January, you know?
Correct.
So if it's wet, everything else, and you're out there, you can still get in there, clean everything. I mean, that's.
And that's a fair question, but also I'm you know, like you guys said, Cache Valley's a lot different than Burley. You know, I don't know, how often are the ground not frozen, you know, in the beginning of January? And maybe I'm completely, you know, maybe I'm out in left field and it's not gonna work. I understand that, but you know, the probability says beginning of January, ground's still gonna be frozen. Or, you know, to a certain extent, and I understand. And the power, we've already looked at burying power, bringing in power from the different areas, and, you know, we've addressed that issue, and our.
You're not planning on generators?
No, generators, we're not planning on generators. And if we have also in Burley, you know, just, we surround the generators with straw as well. And you but it is very minimal, the sound, even on the property with the generators. But we are not planning generators here. That would be a last ditch, last case.
Are you aware of the concern they brought up of your one-phase power?
Yes. Yep.
You can still run all your lights and do everything?
Yeah, so, and that is things that, you know, with the power company and things we are in discussion with as well. You know, and it's not I'm just gonna go, you know, throw a wire up and bring it in myself. These are all things that would be addressed with the proper powers that be. Another thing with the land being sold, we are under contract with him as far as the ground is sold to us. We have a due diligence, so it's not, you know, we haven't paid him, right? We have a due diligence, which is what we are doing here, making sure that we are able to do what we want to before we put things up. But it is, you know, papers are signed and everything as far as that goes. And then the same with the buffer zone for noise. And there's no way, I'm not standing up here saying that we're gonna block 100 or 90% or anything of that. You know, I know there's gonna be noise and there's gonna be lights, but we will do, you know, what is required for us to do that. And, you know, they all have a big piece of property on theirs, you know, extending from their house. And then there is a big chunk that we can distance ourselves still and have enough room to put everything up. You know, so steps like that to move us away and and then even when you do that, you start putting the more quiet activities up there and you work your way that way. And yeah,
I have a question and then a comment on the question. So up in Burley, are your operating hours just like these, or are they different?
So we put them in there to give us that room, that flexibility, right? Just because of the same thing. We thought, okay, if it's not in there, how hard is it to get amended or whatever? So these aren't set. On the weekends so during the week, we close at 10. We're closed at 10. Nobody else comes in during the week. Friday and Saturday, we don't let anybody else in after 11, and we're closed by midnight. And that's
your hours up there are similar to...
They're similar, yes. They're very similar. But it's not like we're letting people come in all the way till, you know, midnight.
My comment, not necessarily directed to the proponent, but I might counter maybe what Angie said earlier, because the letter of intent says the straw maze would be open for 6 weeks in the fall and 4 weeks in December. And so what we've said is that that's when they're operating. It doesn't say anything about setting up or anything like that. And I think an attorney could look at this information and say, you know, we didn't include setting up and that sort of thing in our 4 weeks or 6 weeks letter of intent. And so how much time on either side of these events do you need for setting up and stuff like that?
So to address that, the same thing on there, the question that is asked for us is operating hours, right? So that's what we answered the question to.
Correct.
To, you know, so.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, and so going to Angie's comment, you know, when asked operating hours or operating time, 6 weeks, so that does not include the setup, correct, but we were not asked for setup.
Yeah, so what do you
And
need though for setup?
so setup I mean, so after we start setting up, and it just depends on, you know, how quick we can get the bales in and things like that, right? I mean, farmers, depends on when they are able to harvest, when they're able to bale, when they're able to deliver, that all goes into play. Every year it could be a little different. But to set up the things ourselves, if we have everything there, we can set the maize up, the maize itself in 1 week, and then 2 weeks to do the other things, the other activities, I mean, the detailed things. And then the Christmas lights, so we close October 31st for the fall activity, and we start setting up Christmas lights, and we open the weekend of Thanksgiving. And so the majority of November is setting up Christmas lights. Everything else is up already, and so we are just walking through the maze, hanging lights, ladders, things like that. Not much more things change. There is some loader work that we do. You saw the straw tree, right? We construct that straw tree, but we move bales that are already there to do that. So, you're welcome.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, I see we're at the witching hour, so.
8 o'clock?
I'll make a motion to extend our meeting up to 15 minutes.
Motion's been made, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried to extend the meeting. How long, 15 minutes you said?
I did, up to.
Up to 15 minutes, okay. All right.
I remember this a couple weeks ago.
I misunderstood when you guys first represented. I anticipated with the initial presentation, I thought you were all here representing and in favor of, so it was, I'm glad that we heard the opposition, and I just share my personal opinions. I think that it's a good deal, but I would be more comfortable, especially for the people there, that we've got to get some more detail in our measurements or whatever else if we were to proceed that direction.
So you're some detail as in just the sound mitigation?
Either proximity from the boundary line and then sound measurements, and possibly, I don't know if there's anything, I mean, they've done a lot with lights today that you can, you know, shoot them down, but I don't know what we would do to measure the mitigation or whatever. And I'm only speaking for myself, so I want to hear from everybody too.
Well, just, I think you're right on that. I mean, especially, you know, for everybody concerned, when we start looking at conditions, we want to make sure that we've done a good job on developing those. I think we probably have some language that we've used in the past in kennels and that could maybe be utilized for that. In the 14 minutes that we have left, do we have time to craft that? I don't know. The other side of that is I believe there's some standard language that we use as far as you probably know that, the terminology for lighting.
Pollution?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
light pollution, there's a standard terminology for a standard light fixture that is, anyway. Do we need to continue this? Is that the direction you're going?
Well, yes, but at the same time, even if we put this together too, it still doesn't say it's gonna happen, because I wanna say, and we talked this before too, when the Humane Society put in their egress, ingress, that was over 250,000 for that turning lane. So,
And that's just
I don't know where your
couple miles
costs or
down the road.
distances, huh?
And that was only a couple miles down the road from.
Yeah, it was over 250. So,
So, what direction are you leaning?
well, I just simply
I
offered
don't-
my opinion that
As far
I'm
as
in
action for tonight, though.
Oh,
We're not gonna solve it in the next 15 minutes, I don't think. I think we need a little bit more time on it, unless we're gonna go the other direction and
someone
We're
that's
gonna approve
against it, yeah, or whatever, let's,
If we're gonna approve it, we gotta give them, gotta put in the conditions to which it can be remedied. You know, the nuisance, we gotta, you know, there's some definite issues we gotta deal with there. How do we deal with those? I think that's gonna take some more discussion.
I think there's a point that needs made that I disagree that setup is part of the 10 weeks.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it is.
10 weeks is operating.
Correct. I mean, that's how it's presented.
Yes.
Is,
So
you know, here
setup
are the
and tear
operations.
down should be separate of those 10 weeks.
Yeah. They should
Should be a
count towards this.
consideration of whether you feel like you need to put a condition on how long they have for setup and take down, or whether you just move that over.
Right.
Other straw mazes have been done here in the valley. There's been one done in North Logan. I've seen it. I've seen them put them up, take them down. The straw that's taken down, sometimes it takes time. I mean, just because of the area that it's maybe stacked, you know.
well, weather.
Yeah, weather's the
And
biggest issue.
obviously, this year, if we're building if it's this year, we're building a parking lot, I mean, that's gonna
Yeah.
extend for
So.
much longer.
I mean, without, maybe we need to establish too, I don't wanna be the only one in favor of it. If everybody else is opposed to it, there's nobody no reason of establishing conditions if it's not gonna happen, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Brady.
I see the commission could spend a good amount of time coming up with some very specific mitigation measures. And for me, I don't think there's enough that we could possibly do to mitigate. You know, if I put myself in these folks' homes and, I mean, there's just no way to have 2,000 people come to your backyard and not be able to hear them or.
Not be impacted in some way.
Yeah, and trucks and vehicles and modified trucks and exhaust systems and stuff like that coming and going from this site, you know, I think we all know we can't do anything about those types of impacts. We can work on the noise generated from on site from the activities or the lights, that sort of thing, but all the coming and going, the traffic, that sort of thing, I'm having a hard time seeing how we can fully mitigate that. So I don't know, for me personally, I don't know that we can fully mitigate this, and so I don't think new mitigation measures is gonna persuade me to approve it.
And I probably differ on that. I think those impacts could be mitigated. I don't think it'd be easy, and I don't think it would be cheap. But I do think it could, and I think that probably behooves us as a commission, you know, we give the applicant the opportunity to try to meet those conditions, and if they can't, either because of economics or because of, you know, physical limitations, whatever, so be it. And then we go, and then they decide where they go from there. That would be my angle.
Brady, did you have any?
Well, I hate to see them get started into this and then they realize they can't mitigate all the problems, all the noise.
Well, and I think that's why.
I think the traffic is gonna be probably another problem, and the cars coming and going and whatever else, so, as Chris was saying, there's gonna be a lot of noise just from that. It's gonna completely change the whole atmosphere of that area for 2 or 3 months, so.
You have anything?
I'm with Jason. I think we're, like the attorney said, I think we're legally responsible to approve it with whatever conditions you want, and then if they decide those conditions are too far, too expensive, then they have to back out.
That's the
Then
decision
they have that choice to back out. It's not for us to say it's too hard to mitigate or it's too expensive. That's.
Yeah.
But I think if you do believe that there just aren't enough things that can be done to mitigate, that you can say that, because not everything can be mitigated. I don't want to weigh in on whether I think this is less or you, but yeah, there are those uses where you can say there isn't enough that can be done to mitigate. But if there are options that feel like, well, yes, we could mitigate it, then we have to give them those.
I go back to what Nolan said, kind of stuck out to me a little bit. It goes back to what was it, the normal use of the area?
Vicinity.
The vicinity?
Just right above where he read that part, 6B on page 13, and compatible with existing uses in the immediate vicinity.
Compatible within,
I mean, straw bales and all that's compatible.
it's compatible, it's the
I agree
recreational.
with all of
Bringing
that.
the bales there with
Yep.
trucks and everything, I mean, it's
But
farming,
it's
right?
that puffery that goes above and beyond that because when you go to the corn maze, I got parking and I got corn maze, and I got a little bit of a light. That's it. I don't have swings, I don't have Christmas lights, I don't have those other things. So I agree with what Jason has said, and when it comes to those others, and so that's where you have to debate, but that's up to the commission. I'm just pointing those things out. I don't have a vote in this, but, those are my considerations.
The American West Heritage Center, I mean, if you go to their corn maze, they have a lot of these activities there. You know, they have, trying to think of all the different things, but they had playground type equipment, and they had, you know, various different activities that they were doing in addition to that. So I think it exists, but I
I
can,
consider in the vicinity, I mean, can we consider that in the vicinity of this recreational activity?
They're pretty much, like you're saying,
Yeah.
they're pretty much out there on their own, so.
Yeah, there's not half a dozen homes right across the road
Yeah.
from them before they showed up, you know.
Well, I'm inclined to approve it with these conditions. I've moved 3 different times in the valley. Every time somebody moved in around me, we found a new place. Somebody moved in, we found a new place. Where I'm at right now, everything's changing around us.
And you're
The
gonna
valley's growing. If we could shut down the valley and close the gate when my relatives got in here, Nolan and I and very few others would be the only ones that are still here. But, you know, it's not gonna happen. This valley's growing. Everybody else wants to be here. If you're gonna buy a piece of ground, I think he's come with, asked for a conditional use permit to make that ground more valuable to him. That's why he bought it. I think we have to go with him. That's where I'm at right now. I think we've given him enough conditions. If he can go with that and make that CUP work financially, otherwise that ground will be for sale soon.
Okay.
So we've only got 3 minutes.
So we're at a point, would anybody like to make a motion to approve or deny?
I want to make the motion to council that we approve the Cache Valley Straw Maze CUP with its conditions and 15 conditions and conclusions as written at this point.
Do I have a second?
Would you still be in favor of that without adding anything for light or sound further than it is, or are you happy the way it is?
I think at this point, I'm happy with the way it is. Not happy with it, but the way it's been presented to us, and we need to make a decision for these people.
say, I would propose an amendment to the motion. And I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers. Angie, did you do any?
It's 10 decibels on the
10 decibels at the property line. I would propose an amendment to the motion that we modify condition 12
Can I chime in real quick?
Yes, I would love it if you'd help
Just
me with that.
I believe when we've done this for kennels, that the requirement is that a noise study be performed to determine the ambient sound, and that
Keep going, you're doing
the
good.
existing conditions versus after the fact. And
Do not exceed 10 decibels.
Exactly. Follow implementation.
Thank you.
Project or something like that, right? I mean, I think that's what we've done before.
That's my proposed amendment to the motion. Are you okay with that?
How would that read?
And I believe you wanted to amend the one about the refuse.
Yes. And that's not that's not a deal killer on that. But
Yeah, I would rely on Angie to pull up, a condition that we've used before for the noise.
I'd recommend that you extend your meeting or table this for a meeting. grass and plug it in, but that we know what the language would be. Either figure that out.
We need to extend another 5.
Yeah. Matt moved up, does that mean he's got something to say?
Because if you're gonna extend it, I'm gonna give Chris his hat and leave.
I'm happy to make a motion to extend the meeting if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion that's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay.
So up to 15 minutes.
Was that for the motion to extend?
The motion to extend the meeting.
So
We have a
Sands was the first,
first.
who was the second?
Watterson.
He flinched.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Chris, don't feel your hat.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, so back to your question, Lane, was, if I recall correctly, and obviously staff can find the exact language, but when we've dealt with the noise issue at kennels, the condition was to require the applicant to complete a noise study. And I don't remember all the particulars, but the noise study involves establishing what the existing ambient noise conditions are, and then that report is submitted to staff, and they have it on file, and then if...
I can read that definition.
You got it?
for kennels, yeah.
Awesome.
Noise levels from the kennel, or in this case recreational facility, shall not exceed 10 decibels above the existing ambient noise levels at the property line at any time of day or night. A sound level impact and assessment report prepared and signed by a qualified professional must be provided prior to recordation to establish the existing ambient noise levels.
Right. And so then, because I know the question came up earlier about enforcement and that sort of thing, it is a complaint-based sort of situation. The neighbors complain the noise is too much, and the county requires a follow-up study to determine how much more noise there is at the property line, right? To understand the difference. That's how that would.
That's our
In
enforcement
general,
mechanism.
that's how it works.
On any condition, that's
Right.
our mechanism.
So we have an amendment then. Is that part of, do we want to state the amendment? So,
Okay, with that amendment, with sound amendment, I'll just call it a sound amendment.
Okay, you're okay with that?
Given
amendment?
that sound amendment, yes, I still.
Okay, with that, I second the motion.
I have a question. Are you including the trash removal amendment into this, or does that not?
I didn't hear what she said.
Motion.
The trash removal.
Yeah,
Minor
so what
word.
we're
That was
doing-
more of a
That
point,
condition, right?
yeah, we're gonna,
point of order? Or, I don't know.
If the condition doesn't read now as you want it to read, it would be part of an amendment to change the word.
let's see, we would,
Number 9.
you know what, I'm okay with it as written. But I think just as a point in the future that we go
Because our
more
note,
generic on those things, so we're not directing to a specific.
there's a number of independent dumpster people.
Correct,
Or the landowner can take on that responsibility, like you said.
correct.
Can I ask a question to the amendment?
You're the chair.
I think we're to that point where,
It's really simple.
Just let him ask him.
yeah, go.
Just if that includes setup and takedown, or if that's operating hours, that the sound, right? Because that's gonna be completely different and harder to mitigate, right, with setup and takedown. And that's-
That would be only operating hours.
I would, may I suggest that, because I was thinking of that truly was, a lot of your loaders got backup beepers on them. And if you don't have no barriers set up, you're out of the gates, boom, right out of violation.
Yeah.
I would maybe counter that with operating hours of setting up between
Yeah, if they were
10
farming,
and
you'd have those
3
kind of
or
businesses.
8 and 5, whatever. I mean, some of you work nights or graves or
I work days, nights,
whatever?
weekends, I sleep during the day. I
Well, if
sleep
that ground
at
was
night.
farmed, you would have farm sound.
Yeah, the farm equipment you're gonna be.
It's something I learned to deal with, but it's adds a lot.
What do you guys feel is realistic there?
I think that's just during operating hours.
During operating hours.
Goes along with
Whatever operating hours.
So we
it.
have a,
Seconded.
We do have a motion.
we do have, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
We have, how many in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
I suggest we stick with tradition and just put the discussion on Title 17 regarding cannabis production establishments.
Well, hey, if we put a cannabis facility out there, they'd have a lot more fun than the straw maze. Might get lost too.
Could I make just a super brief point on that? You sent out the links to those.
Maybe I'm not really smart.
I've struggled with it myself.
I was just really struggling to say, to look at that tool and say, this is what we're really looking at. I mean, if we're trying to whittle down parcels, I was just like, am I not understanding what I'm seeing here, or is this hard to really decide what we're reviewing? So if there's a way that we can make that simple for simple folks.
And I admit I haven't actually tried it out myself, so RGIS.
It's a great tool, but when I started looking through saying, if we're trying to look at all of the parcels in A10 in the county and whittle that down to where it really needs to be, I was really struggling to say, okay, here are the 20 parcels that meet if I click all of these buttons, these are the 20 parcels that would really come up to the top. It was either, it looked to me like it was either gonna be thousands of parcels or 2. So anyway, that's my input on that is I struggled with the tool.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe Commissioner Lee actually did some outside homework, so she talked with Department of Agriculture, I believe, and had some information. I don't know if you want to spend a few minutes going over that, or keep that for next meeting.
I think we should keep it for next meeting.
May I ask this, Mr. Chairman, like, what is the next month?
Yeah, next meeting, which is on July 8th, not the 1st of July, we delayed that for the holiday. We have 3 CUPs, including a cell tower, a commercial dog kennel, and a Cherry Peak. Coming back for an amendment, and then we have 1 rezone request to an RU2. Also, we will have the alcohol production back on there. Chris was out of town this week, so he wanted to push that to July, so that'll be on July's agenda as well.
Okay. Thanks. Meeting adjourned.